Chapter 65. Euphemia's treatment was coming to an end. As Hinana said, just relying on the medical machinery on Demonis was enough to heal Euphemia's injuries. It was just an injury on another level. Euphemia was lying on the other side, like the white cat State Zero, who fell into a deep sleep again. She would only be treated after reaching the City of Stars. Fortunately, this 12-hour journey was coming to an end. Standing outside the infirmary, Lei Minkai looked at the sleeping Princess Euphemia through a layer of glass and shook his head inwardly. He suddenly felt that it was a little unreal. According to Mimi, he should have completely left the previous world, passed through the space-time barrier, and was about to enter another universe where the City of Stars was located. Such a rapid change made Lei Minkai a little confused. Beep beep. With a few beeps in his ear, Hinana also appeared next to Lei Minkai. Of course, this was still a holographic projection. Lei Minkai. Demonis is about to leave the transdimensional waterway. Do you want to come to the bridge to take a look? Hinana suggested. Lei Minkai retracted his gaze and nodded. If he missed the memory of the moment when they left the transdimensional waterway, Lei Minkai might feel that this journey was missing something. Lei Minkai, who followed the light on the passage, soon arrived at the bridge. Mimi and Hinana were already waiting there. Good morning. Did you sleep well last night? As soon as Mimi saw Lei Minkai coming in, she waved the fried dough stick in her hand. After talking with Mimi about the abyssal defense law, it was already late. So, Mimi asked Hinana to prepare a guest room for Lei Minkai, and they went to their respective places to rest. However, Mimi, who was enjoying her breakfast, glanced at Lei Minkai's haggard face and knew that Lei Minkai must not have slept all night. Hinana, who was standing at the side, also agreed. After all, it would be difficult for Hinana, the core of this battleship, to not notice such a living person standing outside the medical room all night without sleeping. There's some coffee and some buns here. Do you want some? Mimi put down the youtiao in his hand and pointed at the teapot on the folding table beside Lei Minkai. Lei Minkai blinked his dry eyes and nodded. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. It was brewed with coffee powder. No matter if it's me or Nana, we're not used to grinding coffee beans and making coffee ourselves. Mimi picked up the deep-fried dough stick again and said while chewing. And Hinana sat next to her obediently, holding a glass of milk and sipping it. Are we leaving the hyperspace channel? After drinking coffee for a while and eating a meat bun, Lei Minkai felt much more energetic. It's about time. Mimi threw the last bite of the deep-fried dough stick into her mouth, nodded, and picked up a tissue to wipe her hands. Nana. Hinana responded, drank the milk in the cup in one gulp, and immediately began to work. Hyperspace channel confirmed. Now starting to execute the procedure of leaving the hyperspace channel. In the blink of an eye, under Hinana's control, the folding table with breakfast on it was suddenly put away, and it returned to the original simple and neat bridge. Coordinates confirmed, begin to depart. Suddenly, Lei Minkai felt his mind go into a trance again. This time, he was no longer unaware of the outside world like the previous time, but he knew that the Demonis had left the hyperspace channel and returned to the real world. When Lei Minkai's consciousness recovered again, he found that the big screen in front of him was showing a city floating above the void. That's the City of Stars? Lei Minkai was stunned and asked subconsciously. Of course. That's the City of Stars. How is it? Isn't it magnificent? Mimi nodded, and there was a little pride on her face. Mimi's pride had a reason. No matter who it was, as long as they saw the supergiant city floating quietly above the void, they would be shocked. It was a superhuge space city protected by a shield wall force field activated by 6 giant force field device pillars with a height of 10 kilometers and a diameter of at least 1 kilometer. The giant force field with colorful lights was like a lid on the steel foundation with a diameter of 15 kilometers, providing unparalleled weather conditions and environmental protection for the life living in the space metropolis. Below the foundation of the space city, which had layers upon layers of buildings of different heights, was a different scene. At first glance, there was no way to estimate the number of spaceports that were arranged on both sides of the foundation that extended downward for at least 5 kilometers. Every minute, no, it should be every second, these spaceports distributed on both sides of the foundation had an endless stream of spaceships coming in and out. Ray Minkai's lips moved, but there was no way to find any suitable words in his mind to express his feelings and his admiration for the City of Stars. Don't worry about it. It's just that it's inevitable for people who see the City of Stars for the first time to have this kind of situation. This is a matter of course. Nana, who had just finished dealing with the aftermath of the hyperspace voyage, smiled and comforted. This really surprised me. Is this also created by the Abyssal Defense Law? Ray Minkai shook his head. No, it's not. This is designed by our SPF authority and built by gathering all the forces of the Qin army. In other words, this is a miracle that we designed and built alone. In addition, behind this star glory city, is the solar system that was reclaimed by our Qin army from the hands of the monster called BTA more than 10 years ago. Mimi proudly puffed out her chest. Nana, who was standing next to her, also nodded her head in agreement. Built by ourselves? This is really... Before Ray Minkai could finish his sentence, a piercing alarm suddenly tore through the air of the bridge and screamed crazily in the ears of Ray Minkai and the other two. Nana, confirm the situation. In the blink of an eye, Mimi's face became extremely serious and dignified. But before Nana started to move, an extremely familiar voice to Mimi and her sister suddenly sounded. Identification number QLN 000-0901 Macross Ferry. There is an emergency situation. According to the relevant regulations of the Abyss Defense Law, your ship has been requisitioned. Please arrive at the assembly point A003 within half an hour and wait for the next instruction. Viros. When Mimi heard this familiar voice, she could not help but be taken aback and quickly asked, Viros, what happened? Why are they requisitioning Ferry? What about the City of Stars and Planet Homing's Guardian Fleet? Valkyrie Mimi's identification ID has been confirmed. Hello. Valkyrie Mimi, welcome back to the City of Stars. Now, inside the GLX 000926 spacetime channel, a pursuit is taking place. According to the forecast 5 minutes ago, the pursuit will affect the City of Stars in half an hour. Nana immediately shouted, Wes Rose. Intelligence link. I need the relevant data to make a tactical deduction. ID confirmed. Nana, the mental core of Ferry, intelligence link has been established. Tactical estimation can be made at any time. In an instant, a dark purple stream of light lit up around Nana's body, and at the same time, her eyes were also drowned by the bright golden light. Calculation complete. The pursuit is between the Abyss Cosmic Type Beta and the 117th Fleet, which has just completed the battle plan and returned to the City of Stars to rest. In addition, according to the conclusion derived from the available intelligence, the force scale of the Abyss Cosmic Type Beta tailing the 117th Fleet may reach as many as 3 main fleet. What? Abyss Beta? How did those ugly monsters appear here? Our third defense line is 10 light-years away. How did these ugly monsters with the size of 3 main fleets pass through our defense line without being discovered? Mimi's eyes widened, and she could not believe the results of Nana's tactical deduction. But this is the truth. Viros. According to my calculations, the 117th Fleet should have encountered some accidents on the way back to rest, which led to the arrival of the Abyss Beta, right? Indeed. According to my calculations, there is an 80% chance that this will be the result. Therefore, we must be prepared for defense before the pursuit leaves the transdimensional waterway, in order to avoid the battle affecting the City of Stars. The voice that He-Mimi and He-Mimi had assumed to be Viros said. Understood. Nana, change course. Go to the assembly point A003. After making the decision, He-Mimi looked back at Ray Minkai and said apologetically, I'm very sorry. Originally, I planned to hold a welcome party for you after Euphemia woke up. Now it seems that this welcome party will have to be delayed for some time. Ray Minkai, who had been watching from the side, shook his head and expressed his understanding. It's just delayed for some time. Compared to this, I want to know, is there anything I can do? This is a fierce battle, isn't it? If I just sit here like this, I'm afraid I'll feel bad. You. He-Mimi frowned a little awkwardly, and finally raised her head and shouted, Viros. Ray Minkai applies to participate in the next battle. Order confirmed. Ray Minkai, original, identity ID not registered. Based on Article 33 of the Abyss Defense Law, any ambitious person who is determined to resist the invasion of the Abyss will be our brothers and sisters, and should be given understanding and support. Ray Minkai, according to your pilot level, you will be granted a temporary identification code GP000101, and will be assigned to the 5th Squad of the 1st Battalion on the battlefield as a logistics pilot to participate in the upcoming battle. In addition, you will get a Model VF-1EX as the airframe to participate in this battle. Finally, please pay attention to your safety. We don't want to see any ambitious person sacrifice meaninglessly on the battlefield to resist the invasion of the Abyss. Chapter 66. VF-1X. Although its airframe design was designed nearly a century ago, 10 years ago, due to the push of some unified generals, it was reborn with the most advanced materials and new power packs and other cutting-edge technologies. He-Mimi stood in front of the VF-1EX that was sent to Neku by Super-Dimensional Fortress AI Viros. She stroked the fuselage while explaining to Ray Minkai. Perhaps when you hear that this is an antique from nearly a century ago, you will feel a little backward. But I can tell you responsibly that this VF-1EX is not inferior to the VF-171EX of the same period. VF-171X? Is it a follow-up of the same series? Ray Minkai raised his hand to touch the cold armor of the VF-1EX and looked at the fighter painted in white, yellow, and black. Yes. Whether it is the VF-1 or the VF-171, they all belong to the same series. In addition, this VF-1EX also has a pilot assisting AI, which allows you to familiarize yourself with space combat as soon as possible. This is also why Viros arranged the VF-1EX for you. He-Mimi jumped lightly and jumped next to the cockpit of the VF-1EX. She opened the cockpit cover and motioned for Ray Minkai to come up. Ray Minkai boarded the cockpit and sat down inside. He-Mimi reached out and pressed on the console on Ray Minkai's left. Beep beep. With a crisp prompt, a spherical object slowly rose from the console, and in the process of rising, a bracket of the same length extended out from the left and right. Then, the spherical object slowly formed a circle in the direction facing Ray Minkai, and it began to collapse inward and gradually turned into a camera. After the camera stretched and adjusted, it focused on Ray Minkai's face. Assistant AIJ-063, at your service. Snap. He-Mimi snapped her fingers. Look, isn't it simple? The VF-1EX is not something that those generals deliberately created to show their feelings. Ray Minkai rolled his eyes and finally set his eyes on the camera that was staring at him. AIJ-063, can I call you that? Yes. This is my ID number. The spherical object said. Then, what is my next mission? Do you know? Ray Minkai tried to ask. Inquirer confirmed. Ray Minkai, your current mission should immediately go to the assembly point I-003, find the 5th Squad of the 1st Brigade, and report to the squad leader. Special reminder. Now, there are still 25 minutes until the assembly time. Assistant AIJ-063 meticulously explained what Ray Minkai needed to do. Wouldn't it be very helpful? In the following actions, it will help you in more areas. After all, you have never come into contact with space combat before this. Mimi was very satisfied with the assistant AI's performance. Thank you. Ray Minkai nodded, then said, but I should leave now. The ferry and my mission shouldn't be the same type. Mimi nodded. You're right. The ferry will always play the role of a sharp knife. For the current you, this is undoubtedly a suicidal choice. So, you choosing to leave now is the wisest choice. Mimi unceremoniously placed the current situation in front of Ray Minkai. And Ray Minkai was not discouraged. In this short contact, Ray Minkai had already understood how cruel the gap between him and this world was. Therefore, in order to familiarize himself with this world faster, Ray Minkai also fearlessly chose to set foot on this space battlefield that he had never set foot on and never imagined. As the landing platform lifted the VF-1 Yex into space, Ray Minkai, who had changed into the Yex armor prepared for him by Viros, opened up his eyes and became magnificent. As far as the eye could see, there were space warships with a hull length of no less than 1,000 meters. They circled around the 2 giant battleships, each of which was about 4,000 meters long. Each of them formed a horizontal line with their cannons pointed forward. That's the Wei Wu fleet of Star Glory City and Homing Star. They are the 2nd Fleet and the 8th Fleet. The 1st Battlefield Support Team you are going to report to belongs to the 8th Fleet. The navigation data has been entered into J063's database. Please don't go the wrong way. At this time, Nana's voice sounded. Thank you very much. Then, see you later. Ray Minkai thanked her. See you later. Then, the VF-1 Yex soared into the sky. The process of going to the rendezvous point did not take up too much Ray Minkai's time. He quickly found his temporary team. However, before he could find the team leader he belonged to, the battle suddenly began. Bursts of lightning suddenly exploded in the void. In the midst of this frenzied dance, a crack that tore the stable space in front of him apart appeared. Immediately afterward, a battleship full of scars, billowing smoke, and even sparks with a large number of monsters crawling on the hull of the battleship rushed out of the crack first. At the same time, an emergency communication also spread to the newly assembled fleet amidst the hoarse screams. Help! Help! This is the 117th Fleet. We were attacked by the Abyss Beta on the way back. Now, more than half of the 117th Fleet has been lost, and the flagship Loas is leading the remaining forces to delay the attack of the Abyss Beta as much as possible. Please prepare for defense as soon as possible. The response to this scarred friendly battleship was not comforting words, nor were there bold words to encourage it to continue to persevere, but a solid and powerful attack. In the blink of an eye, as soon as the distress signal ended, dozens of light spots rushed out of the fleet formation, dragging green ribbons of light behind them. They rushed to the side of the battleship that was riddled with scars like lightning and quickly cleaned up the monsters crawling on the hull of the battleship. Then, an auxiliary mech marked with a rescue mark followed closely behind, launching a quick and accurate rescue of the battleship. This round of action was undoubtedly simple and efficient. VF-1 Yex over there, report your serial number. While Ray Minkai's attention was attracted by everything in front of him, a rough voice exploded in Ray Minkai's ears. Ray Minkai looked back and found that there was an almost identical VF-1 Yex flying beside his VF-1 Yex. Identification number GP000101, Ray Minkai, said Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai? Isn't this the teammate arranged for me? Boy, are you a newcomer? First time entering a space battlefield? When the rough voice sounded again, a square face with thick eyebrows and big eyes appeared in front of Ray Minkai. Well, I guess so. Ray Minkai thought for a while and nodded. According to his combat experience, it was indeed his first time participating in a space battle. Before this, most of the battles were on land, and even the air battle was limited to the Kyushu campaign. You're really a newcomer. Come, follow me. I'm the captain of the 5th Squad. My name is Herman. After the square-faced man briefly introduced his name, he drove the aircraft to the 8th Fleet. Ray Minkai followed closely behind. As soon as they returned to the 8th Fleet's fleet formation, the fleet's first wave of attack began. It turned out that when Ray Minkai followed Herman to the 8th Fleet, the flagship of the 117th Fleet, the Loas, was forced out of the hyperspace channel with the remaining battleships by the Abyss Beta. They had to give up the idea of continuing to block the Abyss Beta to buy more time for the rear fleet to prepare. The moment the Abyss Beta left the hyperspace channel, the 2nd and 8th Fleets attacked the enemy with their largest and strongest firepower at the same time. Suddenly, this dark void was illuminated by the light unique to the fierce attacks of the 2nd and 8th Fleet. Particle beams, laser beams, plasma weapons, all of them burst out at this moment without reservation. Countless fireballs sprouted in front of the rift like bamboo shoots after the rain, blooming in the formation of the Abyss Beta that rushed out of the hyperspace rift. In the midst of the blazing energy, the boiling flames were full of the Beta that turned into ashes. If there was air in this void, Ray Minkai would definitely be able to hear the screams that were enough to shake the heavens. Damn it! This didn't stop the attack of these bugs. Herman's expression was a little solemn. Captain, what do you think? Ray Minkai asked shamelessly. There may be a fortress class next. When the time comes, follow behind me and don't act rashly. Herman nodded and spoke out his speculation. The result was just as Herman said. In the midst of the artillery fire, a huge shadow slowly flew out from the rift, surrounded by thousands of lightning bolts. At the same time, around it, there were 3 smaller figures, but about the same size as the fairy, following closely behind. The next moment, black spots flew out from the 2 sides of the big and 3 small shadows and quickly gathered in front of them into a huge black cloud. All troops listen to my orders. I'm the commander of the 2nd Fleet and the commander of this interception operation, Alice Bernhard. Now, from the hyperspace channel, the enemy we have been facing for decades, the Abyss Beta. According to the system's calculations, the scale of this Abyss Beta invasion has reached as many as 3 main fleets, including 1 Fortress class, 3 Fortress class, and various other universe betas. The battle plan is very simple. My 2nd Fleet will be responsible for the frontal battlefield, and the 8th Fleet will be responsible for the roundabout battle, waiting for the opportunity to break through to the Fortress class, which is in front of the largest Abyss Beta, and annihilate it. Battle plan above. Everyone, our home is behind us. Let's fight a bloody battle. The blonde beauty in military uniform raised her hand and pulled out the commander's sword from her waist, pointed it forward, and shouted, "All troops! Battle begins!" Chapter 67. The Fortress Class. The appearance of this 5-meter-long monster attracted everyone's attention, as well as the full firepower of the 2nd Fleet, which was responsible for the frontal attack. The energy weapons that filled the sky frantically smashed toward the central area where the Fortress-class Beta was located. Immediately after, there was a sea of missiles that was like a super-enhanced version of a meteor shower. When the 8th Fleet just separated from the 2nd Fleet and turned around, the 2nd Fleet relied on its own powerful firepower to firmly attract the enemy's attention. The continuous explosions drowned out most of the black cloud in front of the Fortress class, but it also allowed the space betas behind the black cloud to rush out of the area that was flooded by the 2nd Fleet's firepower with the smaller Ranger-class pupae. These cosmic betas that were assimilated by the Abyss did not feel any pain. On the contrary, under the assimilation of the abyss, they became even crazier and ignored the risk of being attacked. They put on a frenzied charge, and did not stop until they died. Newcomer, remember, don't get entangled with the betas, otherwise you will die. Herman, who was watching the battle from a distance, gave the newcomer, Ray Minkai, some advice. Understood, Captain. Ray Minkai was also a little shocked. He didn't expect there to be such a crazy enemy in this world. If these monsters called betas rushed into the world he was in before, it would be a scene of hell. The battle escalated to a more intense level when the fearless battalions and rangers rushed out of the firepower blockade. The moment the battalions and rangers entered the range that they could reach, the intercepting force released by the Second Fleet also rushed in front of them. The battle began immediately. Ray Minkai, who participated in the Dieter mission, did not pay too much attention to the situation here, because at this moment, he learned through his assistant AI J063 that the 5th Squad he belonged to received a mission. Newcomer, follow up. We are going to rescue the cruiser Analogy. The moment Herman received the mission, he immediately notified Ray Minkai. The next moment, 4 light spots separated from the 8th Fleet's detour team. They were Ray Minkai's 5th Squad. Captain, Herman. Sniper, Peter. Support Soldier, Luo, and temporary member Ray Minkai. Other than Captain Herman, Ray Minkai greeted the other 2 teammates he had just met. He then followed Captain Herman's footsteps and flew to the other side of the battlefield. In the battle just now, the 117th Fleet that was forced out of the transdimensional waterway had received support from the rear fleet, thus avoiding greater losses. But when they left the transdimensional waterway, the remaining forces of the 117th Fleet were scattered across the entire battlefield. Or they could advance with all their might and join up with the rest of the army. Or they could stay where they were and do their best to defend while waiting for reinforcements to arrive. The cruiser Anovakafer was one of the latter. Luo. You guys stay behind to support and guard against the insect reinforcements. Ray Minkai, come with me. As soon as they approached the cruiser Anovakafer, Herman immediately gave the order. Yes, Captain. Peter and Luo replied. At the same time, they also found their own positions around the area and began the mission. Ray Minkai followed Herman and rushed up. As soon as the 2 VF-1EXs with different paint colors approached the air defense range of the cruiser Anovakafer, the space beta guerrillas that were besieging the Anovakafer immediately targeted the VF-1EXs. Come on, insects! Herman shouted excitedly. Immediately afterward, he activated the S-Pack that only the captain had access to. Click! The 4 large backpacks on the back of Herman's VF-1EX opened at the same time, revealing all the missiles hidden inside the backpacks that were ready to be fired. Newcomer, welcome to the space battlefield. This is the captain's gift to you. Watch carefully. In Herman's loud voice, the S-Pack launched all the missiles. In the blink of an eye, the micromissiles built with the latest technology suddenly dragged a trail of smoke that was enough to drown the VF-1EXs. They rushed to the guerrillas. Boom, boom, boom. Sound could not be transmitted in the universe. However, Lei Minkai subconsciously added the sound of explosions to the shredded missiles of the guerrilla beta soldiers. The fireball disappeared in a flash, leaving behind countless pieces of flesh that were scattered by the shockwave and flew in all directions. However, the guerrilla beta that Herman had annihilated had only occupied a portion of the Anovakafer's siege cruiser. There were even more guerrilla betas who were still clinging onto the Anovakafer, refusing to let go. Suddenly, a ray of light burst out in the void. It lit up from the void, dragging a straight trajectory, and accurately crushed the guerrillas that were trying to attack the bridge of the cruiser Anovakafer. Captain, the Anovakafer sent a message. They can't hold on any longer. They're about to abandon the ship and request support. The next moment, Luo, who was in charge of support, sent a message. Understood. Ray Minkai. Begin the support mission. Herman responded and asked Ray Minkai. Roger. Ray Minkai responded and immediately separated from Herman's formation. He followed the guidance of AI J063 and came to the left side of the Anawakefer. It was an escape pod exit. However, at this time, 2 gorillas were blocking the exit, making it impossible for the survivors who were ready to pass through here to escape. Duh. Ray Minkai pulled the trigger, and the laser machine gun equipped by the VF-1EX also fired a bullet, sweeping along a straight shooting trajectory towards the gorillas that were surrounding the escape pod. The bullets created sparks on the outer armor and mercilessly pierced through the dense tentacles pouring into the escape pod. The moment Ray Minkai's VF-1EX successfully attracted the attention of the gorillas. In the next second, the gorillas that were besieging the escape pod leaped into space and rushed towards the VF-1EX piloted by Ray Minkai. Warning: 2 gorillas have locked on to you. It is recommended that you take evasive maneuver immediately. J063's cold electronic synthesized voice immediately sounded. Ray Minkai didn't hesitate. He directly turned the VF-1EX around and accelerated in the opposite direction of the escape pod. The 2 gorillas followed closely behind, looking like they wouldn't give up until they killed Ray Minkai. However, the moment they followed Ray Minkai's VF-1EX out of the shadow of the Anawakefer, a cold light flashed. The gorillas that were biting the VF-1EX's 7 o'clock direction were suddenly penetrated by the cold light from head to toe and exploded. In the explosion, Ray Minkai pushed the throttle, and the VF-1EX immediately accelerated. In just a few seconds, the VF-1EX flew to the top of the remaining gorillas. Duh. After a rapid burst of 3 shots, several bloody holes appeared on the gorilla's body. After wildly twisting for a while, the gorillas fell into death. Good job, newcomer. Peter's voice came from the communication channel. Obviously, the cold light just now came from him. Thank you. Ray Minkai smiled. After thanking him, he continued to work on the rescue. Perhaps the attractiveness of the Anawakever was far greater than that of the VF-1EX that Ray Minkai and the others were piloting. Even though Ray Minkai and the others were constantly wiping out the gorilla beta soldiers blocking the escape hatch, they still could not shake the minds of the gorilla beta soldiers lying on the hull of the Anawakever. Such a strange behavior made Herman frown, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he sped up the evacuation of the Anawakefer. 10 minutes passed. The surviving crew of the Anawakefer had all evacuated. Under Ray Minkai's watchful eyes, the Anawakefer, which was crawling with gorilla beta bugs, exploded the moment the countdown ended, bringing the bugs that had severely damaged it to hell. However, just as Ray Minkai and the others were about to cover the survivors and retreat to the rear, the alarm suddenly exploded. Warning! Warning! A number of at least 20 Battle Knight betas and no less than 200 Gorillas betas are rapidly approaching this area. Suggestion: immediately evacuate this area and ask for help from nearby reinforcements. J063's voice sounded again. Ray Minkai shook his head at its suggestion. If at this time they were only 4 VF-1EX, of course they could choose the option of evacuation. But now there were nearly 100 escape pods behind them. Compared to the VF-1EX and the gorilla-level beta, the slower escape capsule would undoubtedly die without the protection of the VF-1EX. Ray Minkai, you cover the escape pods, Herman said in a deep voice. Perhaps he had already made this decision from the beginning. Ray Minkai shook his head and expressed his opinion. I'll stay. Rollo will cover the escape pods. His body is equipped with a high-power communication module, so he can call for reinforcements in a wide range. You? Herman was stunned. He didn't expect Ray Minkai to ask him to stay. Captain, let Rollo go. Peter also spoke. Okay. Rollo, you cover the escape pods and call for reinforcement. Herman no longer insisted and agreed with Ray Minkai and Peter's opinion. Rollo didn't talk nonsense. He simply nodded and flew to the rear with the escape pods. Ray Minkai, if you can survive this battle, I will make a request to the captain to let you become an official member. Herman's irrefutable voice rang out. I'm looking forward to it. Ray Minkai nodded. Chapter 68. 3:220. This extreme disparity in numbers was the situation that Ray Minkai and the other two had to face. Due to the fact that the Anawakif was located outside of the 8th Fleet's route, Ray Minkai and the other two wouldn't be able to receive support from the 8th Fleet in a short period of time. Regardless of the length of the distance, the current situation faced by the 8th Fleet and the task of accurately striking the Fortress-class mothership of the Abyss Beta was enough to prevent the 8th Fleet from providing support to Ray Minkai and the other two in time. Therefore, before support arrived, Ray Minkai and the other two had to fight in this predicament and buy enough time for the escape capsule to retreat to the rear. No, Ray Minkai. Do you like being a hero? Sniper Peter piloted his VF-1EX and slowly landed on a large piece of wreckage left behind by the explosion of the Anavakifer. He looked at Ray Minkai's VF-1EX through the scope and asked, "No. Who doesn't want to be a hero? It's just a lack of opportunity." Ray Minkai chuckled, shook his head, and pretended to be relaxed. "Is that so? Then, now is your chance to be a hero." After Captain Herman was ready to meet the attack, he looked at Ray Minkai's profile and asked seriously, "Ray Minkai, I'll ask you again. If you retreat now, you still have time to catch up with Rollo. Otherwise, you'll have to face the cruel slaughter of 3 vs 220. Ray Minkai closed his eyes and shook his head. "If I wanted to leave, then I wouldn't have proposed to let Rollo evacuate." "Ha! Is that so?" Herman laughed a few times, and his eyes suddenly burst into a burst of light. "Very good. Then, Ray Minkai, if you can keep up, then keep up. Attack. Go." As soon as the voice fell, Herman's VF-1EX immediately rushed to the enemy. Immediately behind him was Peter, who was already prepared to cover. Bang! 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 The VF-1EX driven by Peter was a model specially strengthened for long-range shooting. The new sniper rifle it was equipped with was created by the joint efforts of many famous snipers and weapons development experts. The purpose of its creation was to kill the space beta above the battlecruiser level as much as possible at the longest distance with power comparable to the cruiser's main cannon. In the blink of an eye, the number of bullets fired by Peter's VF-1EX had surpassed Herman's, as it plunged into the midst of the enemy, forcefully tearing a hole in the midst of their ranks. And at the end of the opening was the Battle Knight level BTA that had been blasted into several pieces by 3 specially enhanced sniper bullets. Well done. Herman, after Herman finished, he pulled Herman's VF-1EX, VF-1EX 1X1X, VF-1EX 1XX, VF-1EX 1 VF-1X 1X 1X 1X. This action is the VF-1EX 1X 1X 1 VF-1X 1X. Herman was indicating that he should try his best to separate the space beta into 2 groups and attract them as much as possible to create as many shooting opportunities for Peter hiding in the back. As soon as Ray Minkai understood this, he responded decisively. Although his body was not equipped with the powerful S-Class backpack, it had acceleration devices attached to the wings on both sides. J063. Pay attention to avoid enemy attacks. Ray Minkai was well aware of his current shortcomings, so he wisely chose to use the assistant AI, which would be of great help to him at this stage. Roger. Operate the radar warning system at full power, take over the avoidance system. After the spherical device on Ray Minkai's left side issued a series of clear instructions, Ray Minkai immediately felt that the new body under him was obviously not moving. Flexible. Light. Under J063's control, Even if the VF-1EX was plunged into the space beta pile by Ray Minkai, it still shuttled through it with ease. Whether it was the beta that was immediately distracted and changed to attack the opposite side, or the warrior-level beta, J063 nimbly piloted the VF-1EX to avoid them without exception. In the blink of an eye, with the help of J063, the VF-1EX traversed the space beta formation from beginning to end. On the other hand, Ray Minkai's risk was a success. After Ray Minkai lured away a portion of the space beta, the remaining warrior-level and other warrior-level beta closely followed behind the VF-1EX piloted by Ray Minkai. Swoosh! Swoosh! Behind him were beams of light that were constantly emitting fatal rays of light. Behind these beams of light were the warrior-level monsters with strange appearances, but they had the same tentacles and huge eyes that shot out beams of light. They waved their densely packed tentacles of different lengths and turned their huge eyeballs as they charged towards the VF-1EX at an increasing speed. Ray Minkai held the joystick while holding the throttle tightly. He tried to concentrate as much as possible, trying to find a trace of J063's dodging movements that could allow him to quickly adapt to the battle in front of him, which was far more difficult than driving the Lancelot. That's right. When driving the Lancelot, what Ray Minkai felt was the suppression from performance and the gap in technology. But the fierce battle in front of him was a different situation. Whether it was the VF-1EX or the monster space beta he encountered for the first time, they were all unheard of by Ray Minkai. Slippery bugs. Perhaps this word could be used to describe the current actions of Herman and Ray Minkai. With their joint efforts, the space beta, which far outnumbered them, was separated into two groups. They strolled back and forth in this universe far away from the Eighth Fleet like dogs being walked. Along the way, not only did Bit, who was hiding in the dark, shoot deadly bullets to help Herman and Ray Minkai out of their predicament, but Herman and Ray Minkai also suddenly adopted a maneuver route that overlapped with each other, and at the moment of overlap, they cooperated to cover each other's shots. Under the cover of the two VF-1EX, the warrior-level beta that followed closely behind them were almost covered in bullet holes of various sizes, and their mobility was greatly affected. Behind these warrior-level beta, there were tentacles that were broken by bullets and scattered flesh and blood. As for the three warrior-level beta, they had already been killed by the sniper Bit at the cost of emptying a magazine. Therefore, the only enemies left on the battlefield were the 150 or so guerrilla betas. It seemed that if he continued to persevere like this, victory would come. "Captain, I only have one magazine left." Bit's voice shattered the dawn of victory in front of them. In the previous battle, Ray Minkai and the others' VF-1EX had consumed more than half of their ammunition, not to mention now that they were left alone to cover the rear. The consequence of such a fierce battle was that they had run out of ammunition. "Ray Minkai, what about you?" Herman piloted the landline with a calm expression and continued to maintain a relatively safe distance to attract the warrior-level beta that was still chasing after them. "The spare magazine has been emptied. There are only 100 rounds left." Ray Minkai glanced at the ammunition monitoring interface in the lower left corner of the screen and quickly reported. "Then, let's do it again. Then we'll retreat. Bit, get ready to cover the retreat." Herman estimated the time and immediately made the decision to retreat. "Understood." Ray Minkai and Bit responded in unison. Immediately afterward, Ray Minkai pulled up the nose of his aircraft and pointed it in the direction of Herman. And Herman did the same. They planned to shoot at each other again to reduce the number of warrior-level beta as much as possible, then retreat immediately. Da-da-da-da. The moment Herman's VF-1EX swept past Ray Minkai's eyes, Ray Minkai pulled the trigger without hesitation. The VF-1EX's Gatling gun frantically spat out flickering flames, firing deadly shells at the warrior-level beta behind Herman. Bang! The bullets with powerful penetrating power tore through the body of the warrior-level beta as soon as they entered its body. They mercilessly shredded the body of the warrior-level beta with the most powerful force. Pfft! Ray Minkai could clearly hear the sound of blood spraying from the warrior-level beta, splashing on the cockpit of the VF-1EX. He also saw the translucent cockpit stained with blood and flesh after the holographic projection. But Ray Minkai's face was still cold, and his eyes were still firm. His finger that was tightly on the trigger never wavered when he killed the warrior-level beta in front of him. Beep 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 beep. Suddenly, the ammunition monitoring system emitted a sharp sound. The ammunition was exhausted. Ray Minkai pulled the joystick with his left hand, and the VF-1EX pulled up its nose again. He then turned around and changed the combat mode to the Guardian form. He raised the empty Gatling gun in his hand and slammed it into the warrior-level beta that was still biting him. J-063. I'll leave the dodging to you, Ray Minkai shouted again. At the same time, he changed the VF-1EX's combat form back to the fighter form again and accelerated to get rid of the warrior-level beta that was chasing after him again. On the other side, Herman, who had also exhausted his ammunition, did the same thing. Now, Herman and Ray Minkai only had one tactical dagger left. "Captain, you guys retreat first," Peter, who was in the rear, said while using the last magazine to provide cover for Herman and Ray Minkai's retreat. Ray Minkai and Herman responded, quickly gathered together, and rushed toward Peter's position at full speed. The moment they passed the large wreckage where Peter was hiding, Peter also jumped up from behind the wreckage and accelerated to catch up with Ray Minkai and Herman. "Hey, Captain, how about you do the math?" As soon as Peter caught up with Ray Minkai and Herman, he suggested mysteriously. "You installed those gadgets again?" Herman raised his eyebrows and looked at Ray Minkai's VF-1EX and said, "Ray Minkai, you do the countdown." From 1 to 10, Peter added in a timely manner. Although he felt a little strange, Ray Minkai did not doubt him and began to count down casually. 10, 3, 2, 1. As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling ball of light lit up behind Ray Minkai and Herman. Boom! Art is really beautiful. Sniper Peter looked at the dazzling light with shining eyes and exclaimed excitedly. Chapter 69. Even though the art mentioned by Peter looked rather spectacular from afar, in reality, it only reduced the number of pursuers by a small portion and slowed down their speed. However, this was enough. As it turned out, Rollo, who had left first, had indeed managed to contact the reinforcements. Under the guidance of the art exhibition that he and Peter had just performed, the reinforcements quickly found Ray Minkai, Herman, and the others who were retreating in a hurry. The result was obvious. With the help of the reinforcements, the beta that was severely weakened and still chasing after Ray Minkai and the others were quickly eliminated. Before Ray Minkai and the others could breathe a sigh of relief, they were once again faced with a new mission. Fortunately, before this mission began, they could still return to the nearby aircraft carrier to rest for half an hour. After all, it wasn't easy to install the equipment required for the next mission. However, before the new equipment was installed, this new mission was kept a secret for the time being. With doubts, Ray Minkai followed the instructions and retreated all the way back with Herman and the others. With the assistance of the auxiliary AI J-063, they landed safely on the aircraft carrier named Naku. Only then did he see a clue from the slowly rising gates on both sides of Naku. A glint flashed across Herman's eyes when he saw the true appearance of the object behind the gate. Peter couldn't help but whistle. As for Rollo, he was caught by Ray Minkai and questioned about the mysterious object behind the gate. It was a cylindrical object about 8 to 9 meters long. From its rounded front and narrow back, as well as the thrusters at the back, it wasn't hard to tell that this should be a weapon with great destructive power. Could it be that the next mission was related to this weapon with great lethality? When Ray Minkai asked this question, Rollo's eyes couldn't help but wander back and forth. Due to the confidentiality regulations, Rollo didn't know if he should disclose the next mission to Ray Minkai. One had to know that Lei Minkai was not an official member of the 5th Squad. Tell him. We'll need his signature later. After Herman parked his vehicle, he walked out of the cockpit and said, "Yes, Captain." Luluo responded and began to explain. This is a reaction missile. Most of them are weapons with great lethality used in siege missions. In other words, our next equipment is likely to be this. Which one? Ray Minkai pointed to the depths of Neku, a small warehouse that was set up independently in the corner. Under Lei Minkai's gaze, a group of staff members who were obviously dressed differently from the rest of the crew were fully focused. Their expressions were tense as they moved out the missiles that were painted purple and had 2 yellow and 2 black round logos on the warheads. They loaded them onto the vehicles and walked over to Lei Minkai's side. That is the MDE Dimension Devourer. This is not a weapon we can equip. In the entire battle sequence, only when the fleet commander gives the order will the team leaders of each brigade be equipped with this weapon. When Rollo saw the Dimension Devourer that was sent to the side of Herman's VF-1EX, he couldn't help but exclaim. Obviously, he had already guessed what the next mission was. Next, it was time for the new mission to be unlocked. All the pilots in Neku who were resting in the attack preparation room received the same message. The next second, the pilots who had quickly finished reading the new mission quickly boarded their own bodies and waited for their equipment to be changed and their orders to be issued. It really is this mission. While Rollo was mumbling to himself, Lei Minkai flipped through the contents of the mission several times. All the members of the battlefield support team were uniformly equipped with reaction missiles, and the captain-level pilots were all equipped with the MDE Dimension Devourer. Then, all of them would attack and follow the Ace, Brilliant Star, sent by the 8th Fleet to attack the enemy's formation. They would release all the reaction missiles and the MDE Dimension Devourer at the appropriate time to complete the mission of attacking the universe's Beta Fleet and attacking the hyperspace rift that was protected behind the universe's Beta Fleet. Brilliant Star. Ray Minkai thought for a while and tried to ask Rollo about the Brilliant Star again. Unexpectedly, when he mentioned the Brilliant Star, Rollo's expression became a little unnatural. He smiled awkwardly and said helplessly, "That is the ace of our 8th Fleet. There was almost no one who did not know about it. It's just that their personalities are a little jumpy." Jumpy? Yes. The Brilliant Star is a large MA specially developed for mutants. There are 2 pilots, and they are a father and daughter pair. When the time comes, you will know. Rollo did not seem to want to be entangled in the issue of the Brilliant Star for too long. After he hurriedly said what he wanted to say, he took the lead to change his equipment, boarded the elevator, and set off first. When it was Ray Minkai's turn to change his body and enter space again, he saw the legendary Brilliant Star. Ray Minkai raised his eyes and looked forward. He found that there were no less than 100 VF fighters and other humanoid MS fighters that Ray Minkai saw for the first time in front of the aircraft carrier that he was in. The number was still increasing. In the center of the gathering area that was getting larger and larger, there was a huge body about 150 meters long and 30 meters wide. Its entire body was painted brownish red and black. It held a pair of giant claws horizontally, and its entire body looked like a square box that was stacked with building blocks. It was waiting for its allies to arrive from all directions. Ray Minkai, join the team. The mission is about to start. When Herman saw Ray Minkai's VF-1EX take off, he immediately sent a message. Ray Minkai replied. A few minutes passed. After the last MDE Dimensional Devourer entered the formation, a public channel was transmitted to all the mechs participating in this mission. I am Major Patrick Carrezo. I am the overall commander of this assault mission. A man with long red hair appeared on the screen. His first sentence as an opening remark sounded very formal and serious. However, in the next instant, this solemn image suddenly collapsed. Listen up. I am Major Patrick Carrezo, the ace that has not lost in 2,000 simulated battles. With me participating in this mission, I will definitely complete it perfectly. Therefore, I request that you, as my assistants, must dedicate this victory to the two most important goddesses in my life. Clang! The man who claimed to be Major Patrick Carrezo was suddenly violently knocked on the head by something, causing his clamorous words to come to an abrupt end. Immediately after, it was replaced by a young, no, it could be said that it was a tender little face. It was the face of a little girl. With a cold expression, she said, "I am Lieutenant Colonel Lilina Katie Carrezo. I am one of the overall commanders of this mission. Now, I will briefly explain the roles and tasks that you will have to perform in the following mission." A pair of golden eyes quietly lit up under the red hair. The little girl who claimed to be Lilina Katie Carrezo coldly and solemnly arranged the tasks one by one. Raymankai's fifth team was arranged to be behind Brilliant Star and follow it to break into the depths of the enemy's fleet formation. In other words, it was in front of the enormous Fortress-class airframe to launch a fatal attack. Mission explanation complete. Everyone advance. In the midst of the tender and solemn voice, Brilliant Star was the first to move, and the rest of the airframes followed closely behind. Looking from afar, the scene of all the airframes attacking was rather spectacular. However, in the cockpit of Brilliant Star, it was a completely different scene. The red-haired man who was extremely arrogant just now turned back and looked at the red-haired little girl sitting in the pilot seat behind him with an aggrieved expression. "Hey, Lilina. It's rare for Daddy to show off for once. Can't you let Daddy show off for once?" The red-haired man who was extremely arrogant just a moment ago, but now looked aggrieved, as if he was a bullied little wife, gave the little girl a headache. Knowing that she did not have the strong determination and self-control of her mother, the little girl could only take a few deep breaths and continue to maintain the absolute rationality that she possessed after activating the metamorphosis. She said in a deep voice, "Major Patrick Carrezo. Have you forgotten that 3 months ago, because of your power and prestige, the 8th Fleet was almost destroyed? Don't you remember that you were only one step away from being promoted to Brigadier General, but you made a mistake and were demoted to Major?" The little girl's cold voice made the red-haired man tremble. He subconsciously remembered the painful memory of his wife, who was supposed to be on maternity leave, angrily boarded her flagship with their newborn son in her arms, crossed several worlds, ran to him, and beat him up. Looking at her father's face gradually stiffening, the little girl sighed secretly. However, his father was already the father of 2 children. He actually still maintained this sloppy appearance. She really didn't know how her mother fell in love with him back then. "Major Patrick Carrezo. We are about to come into contact with the enemy. The operation of the airframe will be handed over to you." The moment the alarm of the enemy appeared on the screen in front of her, the little girl's face suddenly became extremely cold, and the golden light in her eyes became even brighter. "Yes, Lieutenant Colonel. Just watch. My goddess is always by my side." The aggrieved Patrick's face changed in an instant, and he returned to his sloppy appearance. The speed was so fast that the little girl's consciousness couldn't help but stagnate, and she almost broke the mental link with all the armed forces on the planet. Target found. Except for the VF-1EX with reaction bombs and MDEs, all attack. The golden light in Lilina's eyes suddenly erupted, and the box-like body of the planet immediately opened a hatch, launching all the GN fangs and GN missiles stored inside the pod. In the blink of an eye, there was a sea of hell fire in front of the planet. Chapter 70. Raymankai didn't know what happened in the cockpit of Yao Xing. He only knew that apart from the pair of giant claws, the body in front of him looked like a square box. It could indeed be called Yao Xing. Beneath the seemingly ordinary appearance, there was actually an extremely terrifying weapon hidden within. Not to mention the autonomous weapon labeled as Jian Fang by AI J063, the terrifying amount of ammunition was like a missile attack at the scale of a subfleet. It was enough to make this unassuming box known as Yao Xing. What's more, while releasing Jian's fangs and pouring down the sea of missiles, the pair of giant claws that extended from the square body made the next move. They stretched forward, each turned 90 degrees outward, and then separated up and down, revealing the force field generation sensors hidden in the heavy armor. In the next second, countless particles quickly gathered in the giant claws that revealed all the force field generation sensors. Boom! A beam of light with a diameter of almost 100 meters shot out in an instant, and with an unstoppable momentum, it plunged straight into the group of heavy artillery-level universe betas that were forming an interception formation. The strong and unstable particle energy tore through the seemingly hard but fragile body of the heavy artillery-level universe betas. Under the control of the little girl, Lena moved to the other side, where more heavy artillery-level universe betas gathered. Tear, explosion, it became the main theme of the moment. But the enemy would not just stand by and watch as they were destroyed by the square box. Ignoring the heavy artillery-level betas that were focused on by Yao Xing, the cavalry-level and ranger-level wandering around the formation rushed toward Yao Xing, who was sniping the heavy artillery-level betas. Data link sharing, target locked. The first wave of reaction missiles, launch. The little girl Lena's voice sounded in the ears of the ready pilots with the expansion of Yao Xing's data link sharing system. In the first wave, the reaction missiles launched by 25 VF-1EXs immediately drew a white, straight, and firm trajectory in the air, flying toward the cavalry level and ranger level that surrounded Yao Xing. The sun. The bright little sun. Immediately, it rose from the dense crowd of Paladin and Ranger beta players. The moment the 50 small suns rose, the violent torrent of energy wantonly set off waves of slaughter among the Battle Knight and Ranger beta. Yao Xing and Lena didn't stop their assault. Instead, they unleashed even more ferocious firepower, beating down the enemy while it was down. Jian Fang, Jian Cannon, Jian Missile. In addition, the first wave of reaction missiles launched earlier had become a death sentence for the Paladins and Rangers who had blocked the Glorious Star's attack. The moment the small sun exploded from the reaction round disappeared, the obstacle formed by this wave of cavalrymen and Rangers finally disappeared. The path to the fortress level and the fortress level was opened. Second wave reaction rounds. Get ready. Lena's voice rang out again as she looked at the temporary gap in the formation. Coupled with the fact that the heavy cannons of the Beta fleet were being suppressed by Luminous Star, Ray Minkai couldn't help but lift his thumb and press the launch button. His VF-1EXs were not in the firing sequence of the second wave of reaction rounds, but that didn't stop him from preparing for the launch. Although Lena didn't say when the third wave of reaction rounds, which was the reaction rounds equipped by Ray Minkai's 5th Squad, would be launched, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the moment the second wave of reaction rounds were launched and hit the target, it would be the best time to launch the third wave of reaction rounds. Unlike the first and second wave of reaction rounds, the mission of the third wave of reaction rounds was not to kill the enemy, but to disrupt the enemy's formation, so that the captain equipped with the MDE Dimensional Devourer could break through the blockade and shoot the MDE Dimensional Devourer into the hyperspace rift behind the fortress level. This would detonate the Dimensional Devourer and completely disrupt the hyperspace channel. This was what Ray Minkai speculated after learning the role of the MDE Dimensional Devourer. Of course, the development of the current battle seemed to be in line with Ray Minkai's speculation. It was gradually moving toward reality. The little sun rose once again. However, the second wave of reaction rounds did not completely hit the fortress levels surrounding the fortress level. Instead, more than half of them were blocked by the guerrillas released from the fortress level's body at the cost of their own lives. The second wave of reaction rounds had a total of 50 reaction rounds. After more than half of them were blocked by the guerrillas at the cost of their lives, the remaining reaction rounds could only severely injure one fortress level. The third wave of reaction rounds, fire. Lena's voice was still cold, and she wasn't disturbed by the accident in front of her. Lei Mingkai decisively pressed the launch button. The two reaction missiles mounted on the underside of the VF-1EX's wings immediately detached, and the thrusters were activated. Together with the reaction missiles launched by the other VF-1EXs, the two reaction missiles launched by the other VF-1EXs majestically charged towards the heavily damaged fourth level and another nearby fourth level. This time, the fortress level beta tried to use the same trick again. However, it forgot that the brilliant star, which had suppressed more than half of the heavy artillery level beta, finally had the time to deal with the guerrillas who tried to intercept the reaction rounds again. A violent torrent of particles once again burst out from the brilliant star's giant claws, mercilessly piercing through the sea of insects gathered by the guerrillas, forcibly opening a path from the inside. A path for the reaction rounds to rush to the fortress level beta and explode. This time, the heavily injured fortress level beta could no longer do anything. It could only watch helplessly as the reaction rounds that symbolized death hit its body and burst into a violent explosion that was enough to kill it. Boom! In the dazzling light, as the fourth and most important wave of attack, Herman and the other captains rushed fearlessly into the dazzling light released by the explosion of the reaction round. Everyone, retreat! Lena did not wait for the results of Herman and the others' attack, but decisively issued the order to retreat. When the light faded, Herman and the others' captains once again appeared in everyone's field of vision. A wave of abnormal fluctuations suddenly erupted from the depths of the void, from the space-time rift, and swept across the entire battlefield like a monstrous tsunami. Kacha! Lei Mingkai first heard the sound of something breaking, then he heard a loud roar. Broken! The magical space-time rift was broken. An energy storm that had never been seen before erupted, tearing the almost invincible fortress-level beta apart from the data, making it unable to break free. It could only be torn apart alive by the energy storm and enter the abyss of death. Lei Mingkai, who accelerated the retreat from the area where the energy storm erupted, held the joystick tightly, not daring to look back at the broken space-time rift. It was not until he felt the bumps in his body calm down a little that he had the time to look back. Suddenly, Lei Mingkai seemed to have seen the most beautiful and spectacular scene in his life. The sector filled with ugly betas and mangled corpses disappeared, replaced by a beautiful nebula that shone with multicolored light. It's over. Lei Mingkai's eyes were attracted by the beautiful nebula that he had never seen before, and he asked subconsciously, "Hey, of course it's over, newcomer. Although this battle was unexpected, you have to know that this is at our doorstep. If this battle at our doorstep continues for 10 days to half a month, then our 8th Fleet and the 2nd Fleet should collectively commit suicide." Herman breathed a long sigh of relief, and at the same time, he also made fun of Lei Mingkai, a newcomer. After lowering his head and fiddling with the computer, Rollo looked up and said, "It is confirmed that the spacetime rift linked to the GLX 000926 spacetime channel is temporarily in an unstable state. The Abyss reaction has disappeared, and the Universe Beta reaction has disappeared. We have won this battle." When Peter heard this, he whistled. "Now we should have a good vacation, right, Captain?" "Peter, are you still thinking about your girlfriends?" Herman was very clear about the details of his subordinate. "Of course. It's a waste of youth if you're not a romantic, Captain." Peter smiled confidently. Suddenly, an emergency communication was connected to the 5th Squad's combat channel. "Captain Herman of the 5th Squad, this is the flagship of the 8th Fleet, Evelia. Please answer if you hear this. Everyone looked at each other. Herman cleared his throat and opened the communication channel. I'm the captain of the 5th Squad, Herman. What's your order? Hello. Captain Herman. According to the battlefield records, does the 5th Squad you belong to have a temporary teammate named Ray Minkai? Yes. Herman looked at Ray Minkai's VF-1EX in surprise, and simply answered. Very good. Captain Herman, please inform team member Ray Minkai to report to the flagship Evelia as soon as possible. This is an emergency order. Please convey it as soon as possible. After that, the communication channel from the flagship was cut off. Looks like we won't have the chance to celebrate our new teammate, Herman said regretfully and looked at Ray Minkai's profile picture. Ray Minkai, you heard everything? Yes, Captain. Ray Minkai nodded. Then, carry it out. I hope we'll have the chance to fight together again in the future. Herman didn't waste any time and simply let Ray Minkai leave the 5th Squad. I hope so too. Captain Herman, Peter, Rollo, see you later. After Ray Minkai said goodbye to the 5th Squad that fought alongside him for a short while, he followed AIJ-063's guidance and arrived near the flagship of the 8th Fleet, Evelia. At first glance, what Ray Minkai saw was not the Evelia, but the ferry docked beside it, as well as the battered Loas, the flagship of the 117th Fleet. Pixie? Could it be that the 117th Fleet was attacked because of me? Uncontrollably, the thought surfaced in Ray Minkai's mind. Chapter 71. Through the transparent glass, Ray Minkai saw an irregular translucent object that seemed neither to exist nor to exist slowly floating in the room behind the glass that was shrouded in countless orange-yellow light beams. After Ray Minkai arrived at the flagship of the 8th Fleet, Evelia, he was brought here by a warrant officer who had been waiting for a long time. It was located in front of a room in a sealed area of the Evelia. The warrant officer who brought Ray Minkai here only told Ray Minkai to wait here before he left in a hurry. Even the confused Ray Minkai watched the mysterious irregular translucent object walk for half an hour after the warrant officer left. No one came here to explain everything to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai looked around the room, which he had checked many times in the past half an hour. He once again confirmed that there was nothing else in the room except for the glass that separated Ray Minkai from the mysterious irregular translucent object. Time once again moved forward in Ray Minkai's patience. Maybe a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, or maybe an hour and a half. Just as Ray Minkai's patience was about to reach its limit, there was finally a movement outside. Schwa! The automatic door opened. The first person to appear in front of Ray Minkai was a black-haired young man. Mimi. Behind her was a young woman in a white coat with a chocolate bar in her mouth. Her beautiful brown hair was tied up in a high ponytail. Ray Minkai didn't know her. Sorry to keep you waiting. Ray Minkai. There was a small accident. Mimi's first sentence was a sincere apology. No matter who it was, if they were inexplicably left in a room with nothing but a glass wall and a mysterious object behind for so long, they would definitely feel uncomfortable. Sorry to keep you waiting. Mimi. Ray Minkai shook his head and generously expressed that it was okay. He then looked at the woman in the white coat standing next to Mimi. Ministry of Justice Sherhui. That's my name. You're the amnesiac unknown person that Mimi mentioned? The woman in the white coat straightforwardly introduced herself, and then threw the question back to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai paused for a moment. He recalled that Mimi mentioned the unknown person when they were chatting before he slowly nodded. If the unknown person is referring to me, then it should be correct. Sherhui from the Ministry of Justice, who was also the woman in the white gown, nodded her head. She took the initiative to extend her right hand and greeted, "Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Ministry of Justice Sherhui. I believe that in the following time, I should be able to provide some answers to your questions." Ray Minkai heard this and subconsciously looked at Mimi. Seeing He Mimi nod, he confirmed that the words of Ministry of Justice Shi Hui were correct. He also extended his right hand and shook hands with Ministry of Justice Shi Hui. He nodded and said, "Hello, Miss Ministry of Justice. I'm Ray Minkai. Call me Ministry of Justice, or Doctor is fine." Ministry of Justice Shi Hui shook her head. The chocolate bar at the corner of her mouth also continuously moved up and down along with her cherry lip. "Then I'll call you Doctor." Ray Minkai readily accepted. After Ministry of Justice Shi Hui took back her right hand, she put it in her pocket and turned her head to look at the glass wall. She looked at the mysterious irregular object that was isolated in another room. "Ray Minkai, do you have any thoughts about this universe?" The first sentence from Ministry of Justice Shi Hui made Ray Minkai a bit confused. Universe? Ray Minkai frowned and pondered for a while. However, he couldn't come up with an answer that he could put into words. "I don't know." This was Ray Minkai's current answer. "Don't worry about it. For most people, no, it should be said that most civilizations don't have a detailed understanding of what the universe is. This is normal." Ministry of Justice Shi Hui smiled and comforted Ray Minkai. Then, she raised a new question. "If you think of the universe as a piece of information that contains countless numbers of data, what would you think? Or rather, what would you imagine the universe to be?" Ray Minkai was stunned again. This question was something that he had never, ever, or it could be said that if he didn't meet Ministry of Justice Shi Hui, he would never have thought of or touched upon this question in his entire life. Obviously, with the reminder of Ministry of Justice Shi Hui, Ray Minkai once again fell into deep thought. His thoughts uncontrollably began to expand along the lines of Ministry of Justice Shi Hui's question. He continued to hypothesize countless possibilities. In the end, when these countless possibilities were gathered together, they formed the answer that was easiest for Ray Minkai to understand and explain through his words. "If you think of the universe as a piece of information, maybe I can imagine it as a picture formed by countless pieces of a puzzle. A picture that can pick up a piece of the puzzle and then put the other pieces of the puzzle in the same position." Ministry of Justice Shi Hui snapped her fingers and raised the chocolate bar that she had been holding in her left hand. She waved it like a pointer and said, "Yes and no. But this is the best answer you can understand. Ray Minkai, since you've already gotten the answer, you should be able to guess what's inside, right?" "A puzzle. A puzzle of the universe?" Ray Minkai followed the direction of the chocolate bar and looked at the mysterious irregular object behind the glass wall. "Yes. However, the answer is only half correct. Mimi, why don't you say it? You have nothing to do anyway." Ministry of Justice Shi Hui suddenly felt a little lazy. She put the chocolate bar back into her mouth and took small bites. Mimi, who intended to be a silent listener, rolled her eyes helplessly and said, "This is the reason why the 117th Fleet was attacked by the Abyssal Universe Beta. 13 days ago, the 117th Fleet, which was preparing to return to rest, found this puzzle in an unknown space and time. At the same time, they also found that the Abyssal Universe Beta seemed to be trying to take this puzzle. Therefore, although they didn't know why the Abyssal Universe Beta did this, the 117th Fleet finally took the risk and snatched this puzzle with the principle of not letting the enemy have an easy time. Let me say it." After finishing the chocolate bar, Shi Hui from the Ministry of Justice took out a new chocolate bar from her pocket and continued, "In the end, after I compared the test results of this puzzle with your test results, I came up with an answer. I have something to do with this puzzle?" Ray Minkai saw the glimmer of light in the eyes of Ministry of Justice Shi Hui. It was the light that researchers emitted when they saw a research object that was very attractive to them. Ray Minkai had seen this many times on Royd. "Yes. Didn't you lose your memory? Perhaps the way to retrieve your lost memories is in there." The Ministry of Justice, Shi Hui, nodded and used the chocolate bar to point at the faintly discernible irregular object. What should I do? Without hesitation or thinking too much, Ray Minkai asked decisively. The decisiveness shown by Ray Minkai surprised He Mimi and Ministry of Justice Shi. Ray Minkai. We haven't even told you what to do, and you already agreed? He Mimi asked in surprise. This should not only be related to my memory, but also to UFFI and State Zero's injuries. From the professor's question just now, I already had a guess. Are UFFI and State Zero's injuries related to this puzzle? Hee. Interesting. Unexpectedly, Ministry of Justice Shi bit the chocolate bar in her hand and said vaguely with a smile, I really didn't expect this. Yes, you guessed it right. The injuries of your little girlfriend and the kitten are related to this puzzle. But how much it is related, we don't know. After Shi swallowed the chewed chocolate bar, she continued, according to Mei Mei's report, you should have had some kind of resonance with the kitten at that time, which triggered a kind of berserk state. The kitten didn't have much energy to begin with, and as a result, it fell into a coma together with your little girlfriend. The way to wake them up is to replenish their energy? Use this? Ray Minkai pointed at the irregular object. Maybe. You can only rely on yourself to explore everything. What we can do is to send you, no, to be precise, your consciousness into this puzzle. Ministry of Justice Shi gestured and then showed a mysterious smile. Perhaps when you enter this puzzle, you will die right there and then. After all, what we can do now is to send people in and bring them out at a suitable time. As for what is going on inside, we don't know. Not to mention, we can't provide support to the people inside. Ray Minkai. I think you should think about it. He Mimi reminded him. Ray Minkai was silent for a while, but his gaze passed through the glass wall and fell on the translucent irregular object. For some reason, there seemed to be a faint voice coming from the irregular object, as if it was calling out to Ray Minkai. What should I do? This is not only related to my memory, it is also related to UFFI and State Zero's injuries. I think I have to go. Ray Minkai raised his head and said firmly, "Pa." Ministry of Justice Shi snapped her fingers again. Understood. Worth, you heard it too, right? Start the experiment. Order confirmed. Project number 06 experiment begins. Experimental subject is a human from Earth, adult male. Name, Ray Minkai. Chapter 72. A large and a small crystal container was placed on the vast experiment platform. The small one was about half a meter tall, cylindrical in shape, with a diameter of 30 centimeters. Inside it was an irregular object that was faintly discernible. This object was firmly fixed in the air by 4 beams of light projected from the top of the cylindrical crystal container. Above that, there were lines of different sizes that were distributed in a certain pattern that connected the cylindrical crystal container to the rectangular crystal container that was about 2 meters long and 50 centimeters wide that was parked 10 meters away. Different from the cylindrical crystal container with the mysterious irregular object, this rectangular crystal container contained a human. Ray Minkai. From the moment he made the decision to enter the interior of this mysterious irregular object, he became the key figure in the experiment of project number 06 mentioned by Viros and the Ministry of Justice. Looking at Lei Minkai, who had already fallen into a deep sleep in the cuboid crystal container, Minister of Justice Shi bit off the chocolate bar in her hand. While chewing, she said vaguely, Mimi, do you believe in the existence of fate? He Mimi, who was also standing beside Shi from the Ministry of Justice and watching the entire experiment project, blinked and shook her head. Then, she nodded. Seeing this, the Ministry of Justice's Shi could not help but laugh and scold. What is this? Believe? Or don't believe? I don't know. He Mimi said straightforwardly. You don't know? Yes. Although we have discovered the truth that the universe can exist in the form of information, we still don't know what is behind this truth. After the Ministry of Justice's Hui sighed, he changed the topic and mentioned another person. However, there is a person's existence that makes me have to believe that fate might really exist. There's a person. Mimi frowned as she recalled the person Hui from the Ministry of Justice mentioned. Speaking of which, this person was also related to Rei Minkai. Sister Hui. Are you talking about the guy with a ridiculously high deviation value? Guy? It seems that even you are jealous. But speaking of which, that guy does have something that makes people jealous. However, she just happens to have that kind of silly and adorable personality. Hui of the Ministry of Justice smiled helplessly. She thought of that face that was enough to make people jealous, but also made people unable to restrain their laughter. Mimi also thought of the same thing. She pursed her lips and looked at Lei Minkai, who was lying in the crystal container. Speaking of which, I was able to complete the mission and find Rei Minkai because of that guy. And the 117th Fleet was able to find this puzzle because of that guy. At this point, Mimi, the proud daughter of heaven, couldn't help but sigh. What a lucky guy. I can't be jealous of him. Okay. Although sometimes it's okay to joke, he has a name. Don't always call him that guy. Minister of Justice Hui waved the half of the chocolate bar in her hand and pretended to hit Mimi, but Mimi reacted quickly and dodged to the other side. Okay. I know. It's about time. We should be able to start now. When Mimi saw that Hui from the Ministry of Justice was about to catch her and teach her a lesson, she immediately changed the topic. Coincidentally, the experiment had reached the point where it could begin. Director. The charging is complete. You can start the connection. Hui's assistant stood up from the experiment table and looked at Hui. Let's begin. The success of project number 06 depends on today and Rei Minkai's own efforts. After Hui threw the last half of the chocolate bar in her hand into her mouth, she decisively gave the order to begin. The experiment begins. In an instant, the entire experimental platform was filled with the sound of commands and the sound of fingers tapping on the keyboard. Then, the low roar of the huge energy gathered together gradually became the main melody on the experiment platform. As the rumbling grew louder and louder, the Ministry of Justice's Hui, Mimi, and everyone else who participated in this project turned their gazes to the center of the experiment platform, to the large and small crystal containers. Suddenly, with a flash of light, the irregular object in the cylindrical crystal container turned into a stream of light, rose into the air, and quickly flowed into the rectangular crystal container where Rei Minkai was located along the pipeline at the top of the crystal container. This scene made all the researchers, including Hui from the Ministry of Justice, breathe a sigh of relief, and then let out a burst of cheers in unison. Is this a success? Mimi looked around at the crowd that was trying to suppress their voices, but she could hear that they were very excited. Yes, it's a success, Mimi. Next, it depends on Rei Minkai's own efforts and luck. The Ministry of Justice Hui, who let out a sigh of relief, reached into her pocket and took out 2 chocolate bars. She kept one for herself and handed the other to Mimi. Do you want to eat? Let's celebrate. Mimi looked at the chocolate bar in Hui's hand and shook her head. Celebrating is fine. But, this chocolate bar, I can't eat it. In a while, it will be my next concert. I have to maintain my weight. Hearing this, Hui of the Ministry of Justice revealed a surprised expression. Her astonished gaze swept over Mimi's body several times. I say, Mimi, your body is perfect. Why do you have to maintain your weight? Besides, with our current level of technology, even if you are as fat as a pig, you will have a body that will charm those stinky men in half an hour. Mimi rolled her eyes and put her hands on her hips. This is all natural. The Milky Way sprite taught me this. Okay. You win. Let's not talk about the chat between Shi and He Mimi for the time being. Rei Minkai's side was a different scene. Desert. Scorching sun. This was everything that appeared in front of Rei Minkai's eyes. Here? Is this the inside of the puzzle? Rei Minkai squatted down and grabbed a handful of hot yellow sand. He was surprised to find that his body seemed to have become smaller. Surprised, Rei Minkai lowered his head and looked around. He reached out and felt around his body. After several confirmations, Rei Minkai finally recognized the fact in front of him. His body seemed to have returned to the state of 6 years old. Whether it was physical strength or endurance, it was far from his strong state before he fell asleep. Now, Rei Minkai's state could be said that if a fierce beast appeared around him, his life would definitely be over. I have to get out of here quickly. Remembering the warning from Shi at the beginning of the experiment, Rei Minkai immediately began to move. Even if he didn't know where he was, staying in the same place for a long time was undoubtedly an act of suicide. However, before he could get far, his body, which was only at the level of a 6-year-old child, went on strike. Rei Minkai couldn't help but stagger a few steps and plunge into the sand. He struggled weakly and rolled down the sand. What's going on? Rei Minkai's consciousness was clear, but this body, which was only at the level of a 6-year-old, was so powerless. No matter how strong Rei Minkai's survival instinct was, this body still fell into a state of stagnation. Until the darkness once again enveloped Rei Minkai, a series of panicked footsteps mixed with the sound of rolling sand quickly approached him. A beast? I didn't expect that I would die here so easily. This was the thought that arose in Rei Minkai's mind at the last moment when he was unwilling to be shrouded in darkness. However, reality was not that cruel. The moment his body regained its senses, Rei Minkai's consciousness once again broke through the darkness and regained control of this body. Who? Rei Minkai opened his eyes forcefully and gasped for breath. You're awake. At this time, an old and exceptionally kind voice came from the side. Rei Minkai heard the voice and looked over, but the moment he saw the true face of the voice, a wave of heat rose from his eyes without warning. Hey, you child. Why are you crying all of a sudden? The figure, who was frightened by Rei Minkai's sudden tears, hurriedly stepped forward and hugged Rei Minkai's thin and small body and gently comforted him. Okay, child. Everything is over. Although I don't know why you were alone in the desert, you are safe now. In the flickering light of the fire, Rei Minkai saw a head of short silver-white hair, pale but sharp eyebrows, and a pair of deep eyes under the eyebrows that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Are you hungry? I made some hot soup. Do you want to drink some? The old man asked. Rei Minkai opened his mouth. However, it was as if something was stuck in his throat. He couldn't say a single word. He didn't know what it was. His consciousness was very clear, but he couldn't control his body to say anything. It seemed that the old man in front of him had a very deep relationship with the original owner of this body. It seems that you are really hungry. You can't even speak. But it doesn't matter. Drink some hot soup first. The old man didn't care about Rei Minkai's strange behavior. He just went back to the side of the fire and scooped up a bowl of hot soup from the simple pot. Come, be careful of the heat. The old man handed over the hot soup, but suddenly stopped. He exclaimed, Oh, right. I haven't introduced myself yet. The old man put the hot soup next to Rei Minkai, sat down on the ground, pointed to himself and said with a smile, Child. My name is Lei Ming. I am a citizen of the nearby Sanguwu city. What about you? Do you still remember your name? Rei Minkai's consciousness still couldn't control the body. He could only look at him, as a bystander, and shook his head in response to the old man's question. Is that so? The old man's face darkened when he got the response, as if he was sad for Rei Minkai's encounter. The next moment, the old man suddenly clapped his hands and shouted, "That's right! How about I give you a name? If a person doesn't have a name, he can't be called a person." Ray Minkai nodded. Seeing this, the old man immediately thought hard. Finally, he said a name that shocked Ray Minkai. "My name is Lei Ming. How about you be my grandson, child? Your name is Ray Minkai. Kai. This is my son's name. From today onwards, I will give it to you. How about it?" "Ah!" Ray Minkai opened his mouth and was stunned. He suddenly found that he could control this body. The old man thought that Ray Minkai agreed. He hugged Ray Minkai and said, Good child. From today onwards, you are my grandson. Ray Minkai, child. Remember, this is your name, the name of your life." Chapter 73. Time flew by. It had been about 4 years since Ray Minkai met the old man who called himself Lei Ming in the desert. Ray Minkai did not know if the time in the outside world was the same as the time in the world in front of him. He only knew that the body he was using now had grown to the age of a 10-year-old. As his appearance grew older, Lei Ming, who treated Ray Minkai as his own grandson, began to bring him some books of this world, and taught Ray Minkai the knowledge in the books one by one. One was willing to teach, and the other was in a hurry to understand the current world because of the situation in front of him. Therefore, the two of them were happy teaching and learning diligently. What Lei Minkai cared about was that as his understanding of this world deepened, his mind seemed to be filled with memories that were both unfamiliar and familiar at the same time. Especially in a place that was full of people and not very spacious, called the subway. Ray Minkai saw himself fiddling with the handheld called NDS in his hand. On the small handheld screen, there was a battle animation of a long-fanged lion. Although the appearance looked different, the main body was a battle animation of a long-fanged lion. This is not State Zero, but it is indeed a long-fanged lion. After this battle animation repeated in Ray Minkai's mind a few times, he saw a new scene. However, this new scene was not too new to Ray Minkai. This was because this was the desert journey he had experienced 4 years ago. That was where he met Lei Ming. With the recovery of these memories, Lei Minkai recalled some of the memories he had lost, and that he was not a native of this world, but came from another human world called Earth. Feng Tao. This was Ray Minkai's name in the human world. The moment he recalled this name, Ray Minkai finally understood the current situation from the knowledge of this world taught by Lei Ming's grandfather and the recovered memories. This was a planet called Planet Z. On this planet, humans and giant metal creatures called Zoids lived together. After a long period of evolution, the humans and Zoids on Planet Z built a path of coexistence, forming a unique survival culture, and also created 2 huge countries that had been in confrontation for a long time. They were the Halic Republic and the Sanaba Empire. Tracing back to the history of the birth of these 2 countries, Ray Minkai could even find out that the kings of these 2 countries originated from the same person. Of course, this was already another matter. Now, the Sanguwu city that Ray Minkai extended out from was a prosperous city in the Sanaba Empire. Ray Minkai had lived in this city for 4 years and was very familiar with it. From the sound from outside the window, it seemed that the local annual event was held. Listening to the sounds made by the Zoids, Lei Minkai couldn't help but snap out of his memories. He poked his head out of the window and looked at the street outside. Boom! Boom! Low footsteps sounded slowly and rhythmically. At the end of the street, a huge figure was walking through the sky full of petals. The pair of huge ears, the giant fangs on the left and right corners of the mouth, the thick and long steel trunk with a square weapon at the end and other characteristics made Ray Minkai recognize at a glance that this was the ancient King Woolly Mammoth, a large Zoids with both offensive and defensive capabilities. They used to be fierce on the battlefield, but at this moment, they had changed into festive costumes and were warming up the streets for the annual festival in Sanguwu City. Rei Minkai looked for a while, then withdrew his gaze and returned to the room. He silently looked at the notebook on the table that was used to record the keywords of the recovered memories. The speculation of the Ministry of Justice was correct. The memories that he had lost had indeed gradually recovered during the days he had spent in this world. Although Rei Minkai did not know what would happen in the following days, he vaguely felt a trace of strangeness. This world was not as vast as he had imagined. Even though he had tried many times in the past few years to follow Lei Ming around Sanguwu City to observe and collect information, in the end, he discovered a fact. That was, after leaving Sanguwu City for a certain distance, Lei Minkai could clearly feel that this body began to disconnect from his consciousness. If it was serious, this body would completely stop moving. Lei Minkai could only watch anxiously, but he couldn't do anything to control it. In desperation, Rei Minkai could only find an excuse to avoid Lei Ming's grandfather's doubts. Fortunately, Lei Ming's grandfather did not care too much. He just thought that these abnormalities were caused by Rei Minkai's fear of the desert. That's it for the time being. Rei Minkai raised his hand to close the notebook and put it back in the drawer. He was about to turn around and go downstairs. Today was Sanguwu City's Flame Festival. During this festival, the residents of Sanguwu City could not only enjoy delicious food and participate in grand activities, but children between the ages of 10 and 15 could also try to activate the Zoids, and even personally drive the Zoids to move around. According to the exploration in the past 4 years, Rei Minkai came to a conclusion. After he personally experienced and tried some things, he was able to expand the movement range with Sanguwu City as the center. Therefore, in Rei Minkai's speculation, as long as he could activate and drive a Zoids, then his movement range would be greatly improved. Rei Minkai was confident in this point. After all, in his previous experience, whether it was the Lancelot, the Long Fong Lion Zero, or even the Zenata, Rei Minkai had personally driven them. Kai, we're leaving. Lei Ming's grandfather's voice came from downstairs. We'll be there soon. Grandpa. After living together for 4 years, Rei Minkai felt a deep affection and sincere care from Lei Ming. Lei Ming's grandfather really treated Rei Minkai like his own grandson, just like he said on that night 4 years ago. Coming. Grandpa. Rei Minkai closed the drawer, put on his shoes, and quickly stepped on the stairs to go downstairs, and walked on the street with Lei Ming. Although Rei Minkai had personally witnessed the Flame Festival several times before, from the scale and liveliness of the festival, it seemed to have far surpassed the previous festivals. Are you all stunned? Come, there's something more exciting. Lei Ming's grandfather looked at Rei Minkai, who was a little stunned, and smiled dotingly. Then he mysteriously led Rei Minkai all the way, shuttling through the crowd until they arrived at the central area of Sanguwu City. It was a super-large plaza that was specially set up to park large-scale Zoid. Before they reached there, Rei Minkai heard a noise that was louder than the ancient king mammoth that was parading through the street. It's already started? Rei Minkai frowned, and realized that the event he was looking forward to had already started. Yes, it's starting. Lei Ming's grandfather nodded, and pulled Rei Minkai into the plaza. After the dazzling sunlight flashed, a wave of hot air rushed towards Rei Minkai amidst the hubbub of voices. Roar! Roar! The loud roar of a beast swept through the entire plaza. The sound of metal joints also mixed with the cheering of the people, and spread to the surroundings. What came into view was, there were leopard, wolf, insect, and even ferocious-looking dinosaur Zoid. These behemoths were quietly parked at the edge of the open-air parking platform, and the cockpits were opened, waiting for brave children and even teenagers to board and have a taste of driving the Zoid. At this time, in the center of the vast plaza, there were already many children and teenagers who, under the guidance of their parents, had successfully activated and started driving the first Zoids in their lives. "Do you want to give it a try, Kai?" Lei Ming's grandfather looked at Rei Mingkai's eyes as he stared at the Zoids, and smiled lovingly. Rei Mingkai nodded. Naturally, he would not let go of this opportunity. After all, this was a chance for Rei Mingkai to leave Sangwu City. Obtaining the Zoids meant that Rei Mingkai could expand the scope of his exploration of this world. This meant that Rei Mingkai could find a way to restore Euphemia and the White Cat's State Zero in the shortest time possible. After all, 4 years had already passed. Time is of the essence. With this thought in mind, Rei Mingkai obtained Lei Ming's permission and followed the staff's instructions, and boarded the closest Zoids to him, the Lightning Leopard's cockpit. If he wanted to speed up his exploration of the surrounding area, the Lightning Leopard with excellent maneuverability might be a good choice. Sit on it and put both hands on the control bar, then close your eyes and try to summon the Lightning Leopard. Under the staff's instructions, Rei Mingkai followed the instructions one by one. This was Rei Mingkai's first time actually driving a Zoids. Previously, when he was driving the long-toothed lion, Rei Mingkai was in a very strange state. His memory of that time was more of a burning anger, and he gave his body to the long-toothed lion, allowing it to do whatever it wanted. However, this time, the attempt in a sober state did not bring any results to Rei Mingkai. No matter how Rei Mingkai concentrated on summoning the Lightning Leopard did not respond to Rei Mingkai's call. "Can't I?" Rei Mingkai opened his eyes and frowned. However, the staff member standing by the side didn't seem surprised at all as he comforted Lei Mingkai. "Kid, don't be discouraged. After all, not every Zoids is suitable for you. Although the Lightning Leopard looks very cool, with your current body, I'm afraid that you won't be able to adapt to the Lightning Leopard's speed. Let's try another Zoids." Grandpa Lei Ming, who was watching from the side, also nodded. Although he had the attitude of letting Rei Mingkai choose, in reality, Grandpa Lei Ming did not want Rei Mingkai to drive the Lightning Leopard at such a young age. This Zoids was extremely taxing on the body. Rei Mingkai had no choice but to leave the Lightning Leopard and switch to other Zoids. However, when the sun went down, Rei Mingkai found that he could not activate any of the Zoids parked in the center of the square. Even the Sky Silkworm Zoids, which was widely recognized as the most versatile Zoids, could not be activated. This fact hit Lei Mingkai hard in the head. "Haha. Don't be discouraged, Kai. You're only 10 years old this year. You should know that little Gaza from next door only managed to activate a Zodiac train when he was 15 years old." Grandpa Lei Ming's comforting words did not make Rei Mingkai feel any relief. Instead, he suddenly showed an anxious expression. "No, Grandpa. There's not much time left." Rei Mingkai's words stunned Grandpa Lei Ming. Then, while Rei Mingkai lowered his head to think of a way to break through this stage, Lei Ming raised his head to look at the sky. He looked at the starry sky and sighed. "Indeed, there's not much time left." Grandpa, what are you talking about?" Rei Mingkai, who was thinking hard, seemed to hear Grandpa Lei Ming's sigh. "No, nothing. Let's go back for dinner, Kai. Although you didn't manage to activate the Zoids today, we still have a luxurious meal at home. Let's go back, Grandpa." This was perhaps the most beautiful night Lei Mingkai had ever had in this world. When the sun rose, Sangwu City, which was still immersed in the festive atmosphere of yesterday's grand festival, welcomed the endless darkness. "What's going on?" Rei Mingkai's body shook and woke up from his sleep. He scrambled to the window and looked out at the noisy street outside. The moment Rei Mingkai's gaze landed on the sky far away from Sangwu City, the hair on his body suddenly stood up. He saw that the sky, which was supposed to be white and the sun was rising, was now filled with endless darkness. In the darkness, Rei Mingkai was very familiar with the ominous, abhorrent, and disgusting blood fire. Abyss! There was no way Lei Mingkai would mistake that aura. He had once fought with the abyss monster that was called Asmodai by the White Cat State Zero in Lu Lucia World. He would never forget this aura. Looking at the darkness filled with blood fire, Ray Minkai gritted his teeth and his eyes flashed with unwillingness. Even though he was not afraid of this ominous abyss and had an incomparably strong will to fight, the reality was that the current Lei Minkai was only a 10-year-old brat. He did not even have his own zeal ideas. Such a kid, let alone fighting, he might not even have the strength to escape. Pa! All of a sudden, the door opened. Kai! Quick, come with me! Grandpa Lei Ming shouted with an anxious face. Ray Minkai's eyes flashed. The belated Ray Minkai finally realized the strangeness of Grandpa Lei Ming. It seemed that Grandpa Lei Ming knew that the abyss would appear from the beginning. The state he was showing now was not at all like an old man who had lived in a peaceful era and suddenly encountered a strange situation. Okay, Grandpa. Ray Minkai did not ask. He just walked to the drawer and took out the notebook he had written in the past few years. After putting on his bag, he followed behind Grandpa Lei Ming and left the house that he had lived in for 4 years. Grandpa, where are we going? Ray Minkai looked at the surrounding people who were panicking, but clearly had some purpose in their actions. He could not help but ask. Leave this place, Kai. This city's mission has arrived. Grandpa Lei Ming only replied faintly. He silently pulled Ray Minkai through the streets and came to a central street full of trainworms. When Ray Minkai saw the crowded trainworms, he immediately realized that the city had probably predicted the appearance of the abyss. Otherwise, there would not be such a panicked and orderly situation. All of a sudden, Lei Minkai felt a warm sensation on his head. It was Grandpa Lei Ming's hand. He lovingly stroked Ray Minkai's head. His gaze was gentle and had a trace of pity. Kai, from today onwards you have to live alone. You have to remember, no matter what happens, you have to be strong and live on. Grandpa, I'm afraid Grandpa can't accompany you anymore. Ray Minkai was startled. He immediately realized something. His gaze quickly swept through the crowd. He found that there were many people in the same situation as him. Among them, the Gisa family's Grandpa Lei Ming mentioned before was also crying and hugging Grandpa Lei Ming's leg. Grandpa, have you been abandoned? Ray Minkai's voice was hoarse. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Ray Minkai's appearance was only 10 years old, but his mature mind immediately came up with a terrifying guess. No, Kai. Don't think about it like that. Grandpa Lei Ming slapped Ray Minkai's shoulder. The force was so heavy that it made Ray Minkai feel pain. A trace of reluctance appeared in Grandpa Lei Ming's eyes. However, he still firmly held onto Ray Minkai's shoulder and warned, Kai, I know you have a lot of thoughts, but today, I won't allow you to slander the Empire. Listen, Kai. Compared to the huge Empire, our existence is nothing but lowly and insignificant. However, our existence is a component that allows the Empire to continue existing. We are the gears that form the huge machine that is the Empire. Grandpa Lei Ming took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Kai, you're a genius. This isn't the first time that the darkness in the sky has appeared. The existence of this Sanguwu city is for today. We are already old. We can't run anymore. Therefore we, the old and useless gears, can once again turn, in order for the Empire to continue existing. While speaking, Grandpa Lei Ming reached out his hand and tapped on Ray Minkai's heart. After passing an object that was wrapped in a white cloth to Ray Minkai, Grandpa Lei Ming hugged Ray Minkai tightly. Kai, thank you. Thank you very much for accompanying this rotten old man for these 4 years. Now let me fulfill my son's final wish. Grandpa. Ray Minkai didn't know what to say anymore. Even though he was already an adult, his soul was still unable to respond to Grandpa Lei Ming's words. Bada. Kai, I'll leave him to you. Grandpa Lei Ming clenched his teeth and pushed Ray Minkai to the robust man who walked over from behind. Colonel, You should come with us." The robust man named Bada hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but say, "Shut up, Bada. I didn't know that my son and I had taught you how to become a coward." Grandpa Lei Ming shouted angrily and lowered his head to look at Rei Mingkai. Although his eyes were filled with tears, his expression was abnormally firm. "Kai, remember, we are the gears of the Empire. No matter how lowly, how weak, how old the gears are, they still have their backbone. Kai, remember, the gears also have their own backbone. Even at the moment of my death, I can't abandon this ambition and this backbone." Grandpa Lei Ming's words were not the only thing that could be heard in the rolling sand, but also the sounds of sobbing in the carriage. Grandpa, Mommy, why did you leave Grandpa behind?" The young children didn't want to leave their elders and stay by themselves. They kept crying and yelling to their parents. Rei Mingkai couldn't help but choke with sobs as tears quietly rose in his eyes. The feelings he had for Grandpa Lei Ming over the past few years were not fake. He was also unwilling to leave Grandpa Lei Ming behind, but with a soul that was far more mature than the young children, he couldn't cry out loud. Sanguwu City. This is our empire's third line of defense. It has already been 5 years since the last line of defense fell. This time, I don't know how long Sanguwu City can last. Bada stood beside Rei Mingkai and looked at the distant city through the rolling sand. "Bada, can you tell me the truth?" Rei Mingkai opened his mouth and asked. Bada glanced at Rei Mingkai, was silent for a moment, and slowly opened his mouth. Sanguwu City's mission is the same as the last line of defense, to create an isolation zone that will last for at least a few years to stop the invasion of the unknown Asmodai. Asmodai. This familiar word once again sounded in Rei Mingkai's ears, and the missing memories resurfaced. It was a ray of light that could compete with the sun and the moon. It was an earth-shattering roar. The earth was torn apart, the sky was shattered, and nothing could survive that shocking change. The only ones who witnessed all of this were the numerous Zergs and their passengers that were parked thousands of miles away from the area, and the tearful child that was holding the only thing left behind by his loved ones. No. Grandpa's mission. Bada looked at the enlightened Rei Mingkai and silently nodded. It turned out that Grandpa Lei Ming and the others stayed in Sanguwu City to deal with the Asmodai, until the moment of the shocking change. Rei Mingkai clenched his teeth tightly. At this moment, after connecting everything, he finally understood. This body was not someone else's, it was his own body. This was not a puzzle of the universe, but his own memories. No wonder, he could not walk out of Sanguwu City's perimeter. It turned out that in this memory, the child named Rei Mingkai had never seen a map other than Sanguwu City. Without experiencing it, how could he know? Rei Mingkai lowered his head to look at the object wrapped in white cloth in his hand, twisted the corner of the white cloth, gritted his teeth, and pulled with force. Swoosh! A red light flashed, and Rei Mingkai's eyes lit up. This is not ambition, nor is it courage, it is just following my heart. Right? You think the same, right? Kai. Rei Mingkai. The white cloth fell, and in his hand was the red-eyed lion head badge. State 0. If you really have a connection with this world, then wake up for me. Let's take revenge on the abyss that destroyed this world. Wake up. State 0. Chapter 74. Sanguwu City. The city that was filled with jubilation yesterday had turned into a shattered land today. The vast central streets were filled with the wreckage of buildings. The square that was originally used to park all kinds of large Zoids had become a large graveyard full of Zoids' corpses. In the sky above this city that had already become a land of death, an ominous and extremely disgusting aura was floating. It was as if there were countless resentful spirits churning in this aura, lamenting the horror of destruction. However, in this land that was about to become a land of death, there was still a group of people fighting hard, fighting against the monsters hidden in the dark clouds that were filled with blood and fire. Old Gaza, can you still hold on? A figure suddenly rushed out of the dark clouds. It was the lightning leopard. A voice came from the lightning leopard's cockpit. It seemed to be calling out to its companion who was also fighting in the dark clouds. Boom! The dark clouds rolled and a flash of light tore through the layers of dark clouds. At the same time, a figure that was even bigger than the lightning leopard rushed out of the dark clouds and landed beside the lightning leopard with a rumbling sound. It was Old Gaza. It was the heavy artillery bison that Old Gaza was piloting. Hey, Old Gaza, can't you do it? This is not like you in the past. Old Gaza's unyielding voice came from the communication device. Hee, Old Gaza, don't laugh at me. Your heavy artillery bison is also injured. Old Gaza was laming. The moment the heavy artillery bison broke through the dark clouds, he saw a deep and narrow wound on the left thigh of the heavy artillery bison from the monitor screen. This is just a small injury. Compared to when you were young, these wounds are everywhere. Right, old buddy? Old Gaza chuckled nonchalantly. His heavy artillery bison also seemed to respond to Old Gaza's words and let out a low growl. Then, the chuckle on Old Gaza's lips disappeared. His gaze became serious, and his voice became low. Old Sadr Didi and the others have already left. When he heard the names mentioned by Old Gaza, Lei Ming's heart could not help but sink. What will come eventually. There is no need for us to be sad. The moment Lei Ming's hoarse voice rang out, the lightning leopard suddenly jumped a few meters to the right. Immediately after, it moved the cannon on its back and fired 2 consecutive shots at its original position. Boom! Boom! Flames continued to erupt. In the billowing smoke, a flash of light suddenly appeared. It was a lightning leopard. And it was a lightning leopard. Under Lei Ming's control, not only did it jump horizontally to dodge the attacks hidden in the dark clouds, it also quickly returned fire. In that instant, it sped up and charged forward to deliver a fatal claw attack. Boom! Amidst the rolling black clouds, a black shadow broke through the air and continuously rolled on the ground until it crashed heavily into the half-collapsed house not far away. Then, it stopped moving. TSK. There's no end to these monsters. Old Geezer cursed as he looked at the huge silhouette that had stopped moving and was engulfed by the sparks coming out of its body. If they could finish it, my son and the others wouldn't have died in Anawu City. Old Gaza, how much time do we have? Lei Ming's expression was still solemn. He couldn't fall before the time they had agreed upon. Old Gaza glanced at the screen in front of him and continued, There's still half an hour. We should be the only ones left here. In the east and south of the city are the teams led by the Anya family and the Hammond family respectively. However, their situation shouldn't be much better than ours. Lei Ming frowned and immediately made a decision. Gather all the people who are still alive. Otherwise, we won't be able to hold on for the last half an hour. Okay. Old Gaza could not help but nod at Lei Ming's words. The reason why these old fellows stayed behind was because, in addition to not being a burden to the evacuation convoy, they also took the opportunity to join forces with their old partners to snipe the dark clouds that had devoured 1/3 of the Empire's territory and left the Empire helpless. Of course, in their current state, fighting might be a luxury. However, they had no other choice. Instead of mingling with the evacuation convoy, eating and waiting for death, and watching the other young people fight with their lives on the line against the ominous dark clouds, they might as well attack together with their old partners and burn the last of their lives to pave a way for their descendants to survive. What Lei Ming said about Gears having Gears ambitions was also the voice of the old fellows who were still fighting in this land of death. It was also the voice of many old fellows who had died in battle. Boom! Boom! There seemed to be no end to the monsters in the dark clouds. No matter how the lightning leopard and the heavy artillery bison attacked together, the monster's attacks did not weaken at all. At this point, even if the lightning leopard and the heavy artillery bison could still hold on, the old Lei Ming and old Gaza were gradually reaching their limit. Phew. Old man, can you still hold on? Old Gaza, who was unwilling to admit defeat, asked while panting. I'm still okay. Old Gaza, are you at your limit? Lei Ming took a deep breath, barely managing to calm down his somewhat chaotic breathing, and jokingly said, "TSK, you're the one who can't do it. A man, no matter how old he is, can't say that he's at his limit." As soon as old Gaza's voice fell, the dark clouds that were besieging the lightning leopard and the heavy artillery bison suddenly paused. All the monsters hidden within gradually retreated and disappeared into the dark clouds. Old man, were our intentions discovered? No. Lei Ming's intuition told him that things were not that simple. The next moment, the dark clouds that had paused surged once again. But this time, the dark clouds actually rushed in a certain direction, as if they wanted to gather together. That's the area that Anya family is in charge of. Let's go. However, before Lei Ming and old Gaza could rush over, the real monster appeared in the rolling dark clouds. Looking at the huge body that blotted out the sky, looking at the silhouette that had appeared countless times in their nightmares, Lei Ming and old Gaza both shouted its name in a trembling voice. Asmodai. Old Gaza's hands and feet were trembling. This was not because he was afraid, but because he was too excited. His eldest son had died in battle against this Asmodai that had suddenly appeared on the continent several years ago. Now, it was time for the father to make his move. Old partner, hurry up. Old Gaza's heavy artillery bison let out an earth-shattering roar and accelerated toward the area where Asmodai was located. Lei Ming's gaze was also fixed on Asmodai. His son, Lei Kai, had also died in the hands of Asmodai. He and old Gaza had the same thought. Therefore, the lightning leopard charged forward with all its might. However, when the lightning leopard and the heavy artillery bison arrived at the area where Asmodai was located, they were shocked to find metal remains scattered all over the ground under the feet of this monster named Asmodai. This was the mobile wolf and the armored fortress tortoise driven by the Anya family. Not to mention the mobile wolf, even the armored fortress tortoise with powerful defense was defeated by Asmodai, resulting in a tragic ending of being dismembered and scattered all over the ground. This change surprised Lei Ming and old Gaza, but they also felt that it was reasonable. Is this the strength of Asmodai that destroyed 3 legions of our empire in a single day? Old Gaza's hands were trembling non-stop. This time, it was no longer due to excitement. Instead, it was due to the instinctive instinct to avoid danger. Yes. Lei Ming took a deep breath. Let's do it. The lightning leopard's figure flashed, and it had already rushed over 100 meters away. Asmodai's attention was immediately attracted by the lightning leopard that had rushed up to him. A pair of huge hands appeared on Asmodai's back. Then, the huge hands slapped toward the lightning leopard with a loud sound of wind. Boom! An explosion rang out. However, it was not the sound of the lightning leopard exploding. Instead, the huge hands slapping toward the lightning leopard were repeatedly attacked by the heavy artillery bison, causing them to lose their aim due to the impact of the explosion. Well done, Lei Ming praised. Then, he discovered that another pair of huge hands had appeared on Asmodai's back. There were 2 energy beam cannons in the palms of the huge hand. Seeing this, Lei Ming immediately realized that something was wrong. The 2 energy beam cannons were not aimed at the lightning leopard, but at the heavy artillery bison's position. Old Gaza, run! However, a laugh filled with unwillingness came from the communication device. Hey, are you here? Old man, you'll have to rely on yourself from now on. My old partner can't run anymore. What? Lei Ming was stunned. He immediately remembered the injury on the heavy artillery bison's thigh. No. Lei Ming's eyes were filled with anger. He recklessly drove the lightning leopard toward Asmodee's back. As long as he could hit the huge hands with the energy beam cannons, then the heavy artillery bison would have a chance to survive. Old man, don't waste your energy. I'll stop here. A dazzling and scarlet light suddenly illuminated the area, deeply piercing Lei Ming's eyes. Old Gaza's last words, which were cut off halfway, rang in his ears. Bang! The lightning leopard in midair had nowhere to hide. Seizing the opportunity, Asmodee sent it flying with a slap, heavily crashing into a high wall not far away. Old man, stand up. In the lightning leopard's cockpit, Lei Ming endured the extremely uncomfortable dizziness and pulled the control lever over and over again, trying to get the temporarily paralyzed lightning leopard to stand up again. However, he was unable to do as he wished. The scarlet and dazzling light once again lit up. The energy beam cannon that had just destroyed the heavy artillery bison began to roar again. This time, its target was the paralyzed lightning leopard on the ground. Lei Ming clenched his teeth tightly and pulled the control lever over and over again, calling out to his old partner, the lightning leopard, until the two scarlet light finished charging. Is it over? Guy, you want to... Lei Ming, who knew that he was at his limit, suddenly gave up struggling and quietly waited for the moment when it would end. All of a sudden, a blue lightning bolt suddenly broke through the dark clouds and leaped into the air at lightning speed, crashing straight into Asmodee's huge hands that were ready to attack. 1. The energy beam that was supposed to bring Lei Ming to his end broke through the void, tore through the dark clouds and destroyed all the buildings in its path, but it did not hit the paralyzed lightning leopard on the ground. Lei Ming and the lightning leopard survived. Grandpa, are you okay? Lei Ming, who was waiting for the end, suddenly heard Rei Mingkai's voice. He opened his eyes in shock and looked at the screen in front of him, only to discover an unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar figure blocking in front of the lightning leopard. This is... The memories hidden in Lei Ming's mind gradually surfaced and quickly overlapped with the figure blocking in front of the lightning leopard. In an instant, Lei Ming's eyes widened. His face was filled with disbelief. Long Fong Lion Style 0. And it's even the European hunter form. How is this possible? Nothing is impossible. Grandpa, I'm coming. Rei Mingkai's voice rang out in the communication channel again, and at the same time, Rei Mingkai's head appeared in the lightning leopard's cockpit. Impossible. Let's not talk about why the Long Fong Lion's 0 form appeared here. Just based on the European hunting form, it's impossible for a child like you. Halfway through, Lei Ming was speechless, because he saw that Rei Mingkai's thin body was faintly discernible with a thin layer of force field, protecting Rei Mingkai within. This was probably the reason why Rei Mingkai was able to withstand the overload of the pilot's overload brought by the hunter form. Let's not talk about this anymore. Grandpa, let's deal with Asmodee first. I know how to deal with Asmodee, but I need someone to attract the monster's attention. Rei Mingkai's words made Lei Ming stunned, then he chuckled a few times and jokingly said, Okay, Kai, you've grown up. You actually learned how to order Grandpa around. When this is over, see how I'll teach you a lesson. Old buddy, it's time to get up. Lei Ming once again called out to his old buddy. This time, the lightning leopard responded. The lightning leopard could be seen struggling to stand up from the rubble, striding forward with all its might and once again running faster. Yes, that's it. Old buddy. Our children are all rushing over to help. We can't fail like this. Put in more effort. Under Lei Ming's encouragement, the lightning leopard ran faster and faster, almost leaving behind a series of afterimages, once again attracting Asmodee's attention, but it was unable to smash the lightning leopard into the wall like the previous time. The lightning leopard sped up, and sped up again, causing Asmodee's body to continuously spin. Over and over again, his back was exposed to the lion hunter, who was waiting for an opportunity to explode. Wait, wait, wait. In the cockpit of the long-fanged lion, Lei Mingkai held his breath and stared at the back that was exposed in front of him again and again. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared in Lei Mingkai's eyes. Chance. State 0 charge. Lei Mingkai pushed with both hands, and the blue lion hunting immediately activated the 2 plasma thrusters on its back. Boom. The moment the blazing plasma flames erupted, Leo completed the entire process from stillness to movement. Erupting with a speed even faster than the lightning leopard, it once again displayed the elegance of the blue lightning from before. It charged towards Asmodee's back, aiming for the weak point. So fast. It's like lightning. Lei Ming used a broken building to evade Asmodee's pursuit. Then, he saw the sudden burst of speed displayed by the long-fanged lion hunting O. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the long-fanged lion Painio had already continuously flashed across Asmodee's 100-meter-tall body, before dashing all the way to Asmodee's back. Just like in Lei Mingkai's memories, it was right in front of Asmodee's weak point. This time, the outcome will definitely be different. Roar. The lion hunting's plasma engine once again burst out at full power. The sharp laser claws also burst out with a dazzling and fatal light. Go! Lion hunting! In the midst of the plasma flames, the lion hunting who was rushing towards the weak point raised its laser claws and suddenly slammed down. Ka! Whoosh! A crisp sound. A gust of wind. The lion hunting hit the weak point on Asmodee's back, heavily falling to the ground, leaving 4 deep and long claw marks. Ka! 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 Boom! Countless cracks spread out from the shattered weak points, and Asmodee was blasted apart with a loud bang. The surrounding black clouds were also swept away by this explosion, and the sun once again shone on this silent city. This is it? Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Lei Ming, who once destroyed 3 core of the Empire, and personally witnessed his good friend die in the hands of Asmodee, could hardly believe that this monster was so easily dealt with. Yes. It's over. Grandfather. Don't ask me why. I just happened to know Asmodee's weakness. Lei Mingkai listened to Lei Ming's carefree laughter, but suddenly felt that something was wrong. Ha 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 ha. Was it a coincidence? Good. Very good. Looks like our decision was right. Kai. Now turn around and leave this place. It's time to execute the last step of the plan. Amidst Lei Ming's laughter, the lightning leopard slowly turned around, walked out of the sunlight, and disappeared into the black clouds. Grandfather! You! The lion hunting chased for a few steps, but was stopped by Lei Ming. Stop, Kai. You're good. Although I don't know what happened to you in this short period of time. But your performance is enough to prove that our choice was right. Hope is the most beautiful thing in this era. We choose to leave it to you. Go, Kai. Turn around and leave this place. Lei Mingkai opened his mouth, and just as he was about to speak, State Zero's voice rang in his ears. Kai. Give up. Although you killed Asmodee, don't forget that this world develops according to established rules, which means that you can't stop Lei Ming's sacrifice. Lei Mingkai clenched his teeth and hammered the control panel. Is there no way to stop it? Even if this world is established? No. But there is a way to restore it to its original state. The figure of the white cat State Zero quietly appeared in the cockpit of the lion hunting. Its gaze pierced through the black clouds and fell on the central square of Sangawu City, which was slowly walking towards it. Restore? Can you restore it to its original state? Yes. But you must retrieve all the pieces, which are the puzzle pieces that you and the female doctor said. My strength will also be restored. The lion hunting, this is one of the forms of strength that I can restore. The white cat State Zero raised its paw and patted the control panel. Look, This world is coming to an end. The white cat raised its paw and pointed to the depths of the black clouds, where the lightning leopard was. There, a power that made Rei Minkai's heart palpitate awakened. The earth-shattering scene in the recovered memory reappeared in front of Rei Minkai's eyes. In the dazzling white light, Lei Ming's figure disappeared, and the lightning leopard's figure disappeared, leaving behind the vast expanse of white that swallowed the world. Wake up, Kai. Dreams will eventually come to an end. Reality is what you should pay attention to. As the white cat State Zero got up, the lion hunting also gradually disappeared, leaving Rei Minkai standing in the same place. As long as I find all the pieces, everything can be restored? Rei Minkai asked. Exactly. Also, Your Royal Highness has become a community of destiny with us. Let's meet in reality, Kai. After saying that, the figure of the white cat State Zero disappeared. Immediately after, a sense of weightlessness hit, making Rei Minkai feel dizzy. When the sound rang in his ears again, it was the sound of gas leakage and some noisy voices. Experiment ended. Experimental subject's body is in good condition, data confirmed. Experimental subject's body is recovering normally, consciousness is beginning to awaken. When Rei Minkai slowly opened his eyes from the noise, he saw Ministry of Justice Shi Hui and He Mimi standing next to the crystal container again. Rei Minkai subconsciously raised his hand and turned his head to avoid the dazzling light in front of him, and asked, "How long has it been?" "About 5 hours. Ministry of Justice Shi Hui looked down at her watch and said, 5 hours? I feel like a few years have passed. Rei Minkai froze for a moment and smiled bitterly. Himimi raised her hand to signal the others to move the dazzling light away, and said, "It seems that you have experienced a very long dream. Do you have any thoughts?" "Thoughts?" Rei Minkai walked out from the opened rectangular crystal container, moved his hands and feet, and said with a sigh, "Maybe some. But I think I found the answer." "Can you tell me about it?" Ministry of Justice Shi Hui's eyes lit up. She felt like the breakthrough of Project 06 was today. But Rei Minkai didn't answer the question. Instead, he looked at He Mimi and asked with a serious expression, "How can I find something like this puzzle? Or, what can I do to have the power to find this puzzle?" Hearing this, He Mimi and He Mimi looked at each other in surprise. He Mimi thought for a moment and gave an answer. "There is a way. But you have to think about it carefully." "What way?" "Join our SPF authority and become a member of the patrol team. Then, you will have enough authority and power to travel across the world to find what you want." At this point, He Mimi added another sentence. "Of course, the premise is that you have to complete the mission given to you by our SPF authority." Chapter 75. In the Clear Sky. The formation formed by the 5 VF-31s flew across the sky, heading for a higher and wider world. Below the fleet of VF-31, in a lush green park, a young man was looking up at the fleet of VF-31 flying into the sky, towards the dark but even more vast space. After a long time, when the VF-31s completely disappeared into the sky, the young man slowly lowered his head and looked at the lake in front of him. A group of swans with pure white feathers were resting on the sparkling lake. They sometimes paddled on the surface of the lake slowly and gracefully, and sometimes they stopped and turned their small heads to look around. They seemed to be at ease. Behind the group of swans, there was a pavilion in the center of the lake. In the pavilion there was a device that looked like a piano. It seemed to be the place where the music class was used. The young man closed his eyes and felt the cool breeze blowing against his face. His thoughts could not help but drift. It had been 3 days since the City of Stars returned to the synchronous orbit of planet Homecoming. It was also the 2nd day since the young man landed on this planet from the City of Stars, planet Homecoming. The young man was none other than Rei Minkai, who decided to join the SPF authority. However, Mimi put him on planet Homecoming on the grounds that he needed to be investigated. She gave him 3 days to move freely and waited for the results of the investigation to be released. Ray Minkai did not know what the investigation Mimi mentioned was. He only knew that from the moment he set foot on planet Homecoming, he was stunned by everything on planet Homecoming. Planet Homecoming. From the public information, this was a desolate planet located in the periphery of the solar system. It was farther away than the Kuiper Belt, which was far away from the solar system. It was hidden in the dark space. Decades ago, without the knowledge of the humans in this world, a group of unknown alien monsters, who were later called Beta, occupied this planet and used it as a springboard to invade the solar system. They gradually invaded the inner part of the solar system, the mother planet of mankind, Earth. Humans. In the face of the invasion of the Beta, the humans of this world may have had a trace of resistance at first, but in the case of internal strife, they lost one opportunity after another. In the end, they ended up building spaceships, taking away a small number of elites, and abandoning most of the humans on Earth. These were the memories that Lei Minkai had of this world that he had recovered. However, the world before his eyes had changed. The dying humans were saved, and with the help of a powerful foreign force, they counterattacked Beta and gradually recaptured the solar system. Finally, on this dark planet that Beta was used as a springboard to invade the solar system, they built a distant base. The result was the green, thriving life planet in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. Ray Minkai raised his head and looked at the dazzling but unusually warm light in the sky. This was not the center of the solar system, the sun. Instead, it was the foreign force that had carried out a massive ecological reconstruction project that could be called a miracle of life on this desolate planet that they had named Homing Star. Furthermore, in order to allow the planet to get enough sunlight and allow the oceans to flow, they even more crazily created an artificial sun and selected an asteroid from the Kuiper Belt that met the basic conditions to transform it and let it serve as a satellite in a similar position to the Moon. These super miracles that only existed in Ray Minkai's original world were realized just like that. In the final analysis, the rebirth of Homing Star was a huge amount of research they had carried out on the evolution of Earth's ecosphere. It's really like a fantasy. Ray Minkai's gaze was fixed on the group of swans that had begun to accelerate and flap their wings on the lake. He watched them fly into the blue sky one by one under the lead of the goose. Amidst the splashes caused by these white elves, a pleasant piano sound rang out. At the same time, there was also a burst of singing. First, it was a clear and pleasant female voice, followed by a tender and somewhat chaotic child's voice, as if it was carrying out music education. If the loss is to find it, then parting is to meet by chance. After goodbye, I'll meet hello. Ray Minkai's ears twitched, and vaguely, he seemed to feel that the lyrics of this song seemed to be somewhat familiar. Surprised, Ray Minkai's gaze passed through the splashes of the swans, the scattered feathers, and landed in the pavilion in the center of the lake, on the black-haired woman who was playing the piano and guiding the children around the piano. The woman had a beautiful face and a noble temperament. Her jet-black hair was draped over her back like silk. Her nimble hands danced rhythmically on the piano keys, playing pleasing notes one after another. This is? Ray Minkai suddenly felt that the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar, but the children around the woman were indeed too strange. Although the appearance of those children was generally similar to that of humans, there was a clear sense of difference in subtle places. For example, the beast ears on their hair, the scales on their faces, and the arms that extended from their back. At first glance, it was simply like a mythical creature. All of a sudden, Lei Minkai recalled something. He seemed to already know the identity of the woman who was playing the piano. These familiar lyrics, these familiar melodies, and that familiar figure and temperament. Coupled with this wonderful world, The woman who was playing the piano in the pavilion was probably only her. Marina Ismail. That's her name. This was not Ray Minkai's voice. At the same time as this voice sounded, Ray Minkai suddenly felt that someone was peeping into his heart. He suddenly turned around and looked behind him, and then put on a defensive posture. But the next moment, Ray Minkai looked at the person in surprise, and subconsciously relaxed his body. Silver hair, silver skin, and that pair of eyes that were flowing with golden light. Although the face in front of him was somewhat different from the face in his memory, in Ray Minkai's memory, there was only one person who met this condition. Chana F. Qingying. After Ray Minkai subconsciously said this name, he swallowed his saliva. This was too exciting. At first, he was still skeptical about his own guess, but he did not expect that the next moment, he would welcome the truth that shocked even himself. It seems that Her Royal Highness is right. You are indeed extraordinary. I am Chana F. Qingying. That's right. The person who came was Chana F. Qingying. Moreover, it was Chana F. Qingying, who was integrated with ELS in the ending of the original movie, as a symbol of friendship between the two civilizations. Ray Minkai looked at Chana's right hand that was extended, hesitated for a moment, but still reached out and shook it. Unexpectedly, Chana's body that was integrated with ELS was not as cold and stiff as Ray Minkai imagined. Instead, it had the warmth and softness of a human. I'm Ray Minkai. It's nice to meet you. Chana F. Qingying. Me too. After Chana withdrew his right hand, his gaze looked over Ray Minkai's shoulder and fell on the pavilion, and then he suggested, how about we change places? If we stay here, it might affect Marina and the others' lessons. Ray Minkai nodded. As long as he saw Chana's eyes, Ray Minkai knew that perhaps the inspection that Mimi mentioned had already begun. As for the feeling of peeking into his heart just now, it was definitely Chana's initiative. Otherwise, with Chana's ability after he integrated with ELS, Ray Minkai would not have been able to detect Chana's actions. The two left the lake, passed through the forest path, and came to a quiet corner. Ray Minkai. I was asked by Her Royal Highness to come and talk to you. I hope you can understand this immediately. Chana did not beat around the bush, and directly stated his purpose of coming. Ray Minkai nodded. I've already guessed it. Chana, can I call you that? Chana nodded. Yes. Ray Minkai nodded in response, waiting for Chana's opening speech. Why do you want to join SPF Authority? Do you know what their duties are? Chana spoke. I don't know what SPF Authority is, but I want to join them to find the missing puzzle pieces as soon as possible. If I do this, maybe I can revive my hometown. Ray Minkai did not hide his thoughts, nor did he excessively stir up emotions. Just like Chana, he straightforwardly expressed his thoughts. That's all. The golden light in Chana's eyes shone brightly, and Ray Minkai suddenly felt a huge pressure emerging from the void, surrounding his body like a whirlpool. Every moment they were all looking into his heart. This was an inspection. That's all. Ray Minkai replied calmly. Even after joining SPF Authority and realizing that there are some discrepancies in your thoughts, you still did not change your original intention? Chana's voice gradually became cold, and the power that peeked into Ray Minkai's heart grew stronger. Ray Minkai, there were almost no secrets in front of Chana. I won't change my original intention, but if SPF Authority can't fulfill my wish of reviving my hometown, I'll leave and find another way. Ray Minkai fearlessly looked into Chana's eyes, even though his mental strength was nothing compared to Chana's terrifying mental strength. Understood. Following Chana's voice, the huge pressure on Ray Minkai's shoulders suddenly disappeared, and Ray Minkai almost stumbled a few steps back. Chana quickly reached out and grabbed Ray Minkai, and said apologetically, I'm very sorry. This is one of the necessary procedures to join SPF authority. Originally, the pioneer himself was in charge, but due to certain reasons, I can only temporarily take over. After Ray Minkai thanked him, he asked in confusion, "Does this mean I've passed the inspection?" "No. It's just that I've passed." Ray Minkai. "Now you can only be considered a reserve member of SPF authority." Chapter 76. Investigation. It was so simple, yet so difficult. It seemed like a few simple sentences, but there were thousands of murderous intentions hidden in them. If someone who didn't know the situation looked down on Cha Na-F. Ching-ing and gave a messy answer, Lei Minkai could imagine what kind of drastic measures Cha Na would take to deal with the people who tried to sneak into the S.P. F administration based on the original work. Just as Lei Minkai was about to ask Cha Na about the administration while he still had some time, he heard a noise coming from the path in the woods. He saw a beautiful figure in a white dress, surrounded by many children, slowly walking out of the forest path. "Marina," Cha Na saw the person and nodded. She looked back at Ray Minkai and said, "Ray Minkai, this is the end of the matter. You still have 24 hours of free time. After that, you have to report back to the authorities' headquarters in Xingyao City." "Got it. Thank you very much." Ray Minkai nodded and tactfully said goodbye to Marina and the children, then turned and left. Although he did not ask Cha Na about the authority, he knew what to do next. Ray Minkai looked up at the sky that was beginning to turn yellow. After thinking about it, he felt that it was better to return to Xingyao City in advance. This was because Euphemia and White Cat State Zero were still there receiving treatment. According to the Ministry of Justice, Euphemia and White Cat State Zero should wake up in the next few days. Since the last experiment, the Ministry of Justice had obtained a lot of experimental data and guaranteed that Euphemia and White Cat State Zero could wake up as soon as possible. Ray Minkai already knew that White Cat State Zero would wake up, but he was still uncertain about Euphemia's situation. With this thought in mind, Ray Minkai took the spaceship to Xingyao City and returned to Xingyao City. He did not expect to see Mimi as soon as he got off the spaceship. "Morning, Ray Minkai." The black-haired girl, Mimi, waved at Ray Minkai, gesturing for Ray Minkai to walk over. Ray Minkai raised his head and looked at the clock on the ceiling of the hall. He nodded and replied, "Morning, Miss He. Why are you here?" Mimi smiled, seemingly a little embarrassed. "It's nothing. I just want to congratulate you on passing the screening, and I want to take you somewhere." "Thank you," Ray Minkai nodded. Seeing that there was still some time, he agreed to Mimi's request. Under the lead of Mimi, the two of them left the port and boarded an automatic, unmanned taxi to somewhere in the City of Stars. "I hope the review won't bring you any unpleasant memories. This is one of the measures we must take. After all, your situation is special. We and Viros can only be given special treatment." As soon as they started the car, Mimi, who was sitting across from Ray Minkai, took the initiative to apologize. Ray Minkai was a little surprised. He thought that his screening was just a routine procedure. He did not expect it to be a special treatment. Seeing Ray Minkai's surprised look, Mimi shrugged and explained the reason. The SPF authority just finished their last recruitment. Now, a large number of new people are gathered in the SPF authority's inspector training grounds to receive training. Under these circumstances, there is no way to allow you to join the SPF authority through normal means. So we have to use a special method? Yes. Fortunately, you were one of the experimental personnel who participated in Project 06. Viros, who strictly monitored the personnel of the SPF authority, nodded in agreement. Mimi spread out her hands, indicating that there was nothing she could do. So, Chana F. Chinging appeared? Mimi nodded. Yes. Originally, Viros wanted the pioneer to step in, but due to some special reasons, it was changed to Chana F. Chinging. At this point, Mimi smiled bitterly. You should feel lucky. Otherwise, when the Forerunner personally shows up, I'm afraid he'll be able to see through your heart. Ray Minkai was shocked. When he faced Cha-Na just now, he had seen through Cha-Na thoroughly. Could there be someone even more powerful? Don't be surprised. The reason why the pioneer is called a pioneer is because he is powerful. Mimi muttered a few words and looked out the window. We're here. The moment Ray Minkai stepped out of the car, he noticed that the surrounding scenery was somewhat out of place with the atmosphere of Xingyao City. There were no buildings around, only short, dense bushes and a road that led to the downtown area of Xingyao City. The monotonous street lamps on both sides of the road made the atmosphere seem particularly bleak. Buzz. The driverless car gradually went further and further away. It's here. Ray Minkai, this is the place I want you to see with your own eyes. If you insist on joining the authority. Mimi walked along the path in front of her and walked all the way to the bottom of a signboard with the words, "The Land of Shining Stars," written on it, and said to Ray Minkai, "The Land of Shining Stars?" Looking at this name, Ray Minkai seemed to feel something, and there was something strange in his heart. Yes, the Land of Shining Stars. Come in. Mimi nodded, and her face suddenly became solemn. She turned and walked into the Land of Shining Stars. Ray Minkai followed behind. The moment he stepped into this place, the surrounding light suddenly turned black. Then, before Ray Minkai could fully adapt to the darkness in front of him, starlight appeared. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, countless stars lit up one by one in a neat row in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. There were countless stars, all the way to the depths of the darkness that Ray Minkai's sight could not reach. However, in the starlight that filled the sky, Ray Minkai saw that behind this seemingly bright and beautiful starlight, there was another appearance. Words, under the starlight that was closer to Ray Minkai, there was a paragraph of text that Ray Minkai did not understand, but as long as Ray Minkai looked down along this unfamiliar text, he would see a paragraph of Chinese at the bottom. It was written so: SPF. Authority Team C0791 found traces of civilization in World No. Z9901A. After investigation, the civilization called itself Arolos. It has been destroyed by the Abyss invasion. Ray Minkai's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly turned his head to look at the starlight beside him. There was also a second kind there, an alien civilization that Ray Minkai could not understand, but there was still a paragraph written in Chinese at the bottom. SPF. Authority Team E1990B found traces of civilization in World No. YX887. After investigation, the civilization called itself Sky. It has been destroyed by the Abyss invasion. It's the same. Ray Minkai's heart seemed to be grabbed by something. He kept turning his head to look at the unfamiliar words hidden under the starlight, and looked at the Chinese paragraph below. It's the same. These are all the same. Suddenly, Ray Minkai, who was walking back and forth between the starlight, stopped in his tracks. He suddenly understood. Where the stars shone, the meaning of this noun. These starlights were all tombstones. They were all civilizations that were unable to resist the invasion of the Abyss and eventually watched as their civilizations were destroyed. Yes, they were all civilizations that were destroyed under the invasion of the Abyss. Ray Minkai, you should remember that I once said that trillions of civilizations were destroyed by the Abyss, right? These numbers are just the tombstones that we know. They are just the tombstones that the surviving civilizations that obtained a chance to breathe after the ultradimensional fortress appeared in this universe. Mimi slowly walked out of the shadow where the starlight could not reach and sighed gloomily. In fact, there are more civilizations in the fallen area of the abyss that we don't know about, whose language and even traces of civilization have been erased. As she spoke, Mimi raised her head to look at the bright but solemn and silent starlight above her head. This is the most common situation that we, the inspectors of SPF authority, have to face. In a sense, we are the messengers of death. However, we are not burying the dead, but the civilizations that died in the invasion of the abyss. Is this what you want me to know? Rei Minkai's face was very pale and solemn. Here, the starlight was dazzling, but there was a forest of tombstones that stretched as far as the eye could see. What Lei Minkai saw and read was just a simple sentence. However, the sentence was simple yet cruel. Yes. This is what I want you to know. Rei Minkai, in all the dimensions of the universe, you are not the only one with the idea of reviving and saving your homeland. Behind these tombstones there are thousands of people who have the same idea as you. Mimi's voice was extremely cold, piercing into Rei Minkai's heart like 1,000-year-old ice. However, they all failed and became a part of this place. Rei Minkai, as the last human in your homeland, do you dare to take this step? Mimi pointed at the starlight above her head and asked, "This step, is it heaven? Is it hell? It's all up to you." Rei Minkai raised his head and looked at the starlight. It was as if there were unfamiliar yet familiar figures behind the starlight looking at him. They did not know each other, but they had the same thing in common. Raise the blade of vengeance against the abyss and revive your homeland with all your strength. These were the words that sounded in Rei Minkai's ears at this moment. It was not the voice of others, but the voice that came from the depths of Rei Minkai's heart. This is not ambition, nor is it backbone. I'm just following my heart. Rei Minkai was silent for a while, then raised his head and said with a sonorous voice, "You dare!" Instantly, a smile appeared on Mimi's face. She stretched out her right hand and said, "Rei Minkai, welcome to this beautiful and cruel world." Chapter 77. UFFI, you're awake. The moment Euphemia woke up, Rei Minkai, who was waiting beside the bed, softly called out to the sleeping princess. "Aha!" Euphemia let out a subconscious murmur. She slowly moved her eyes, looked around the room she was in, and finally set her eyes on Rei Minkai, who was beside her. "Is this heaven? I seem to remember that when I lost consciousness, you were also by my side. Right? The Lion Knight." Perhaps because she had just woken up from a deep sleep, Euphemia's consciousness seemed to be in a state between sobriety and confusion. She subconsciously reached out to touch the side of Lei Minkai's face without fully understanding the situation. Unexpectedly, Lei Minkai grabbed Euphemia's hand and gently placed it on the side of his face. He said softly, "Euphemia, I'm not going to give you a chance. This is not heaven. You're still alive." "I'm still alive?" Euphemia felt Rei Minkai's warm face, and the light in her eyes gradually lit up. "Kai, I'm not dead?" Euphemia, who finally understood, asked in surprise. UFFI, you're not dead. Now we're in a new and unfamiliar world." Rei Minkai nodded and confirmed the situation. "Really?" Euphemia exclaimed in a small voice. She suddenly retracted her hand that was touching Rei Minkai's face, and pulled up the quilt to cover her face. Her face suddenly became red. As the third princess of the Britannia Empire, she didn't lack the education of a lady. She was even stricter in order to avoid doing something that would damage the reputation of the royal family in public and social activities. Therefore, the intimate action made Euphemia, who reacted in a daze, blushed and buried herself in the quilt. Seeing this, Rei Minkai didn't have the intention to make fun of Euphemia. Instead, he stood up, took a step back, and performed a knight's salute to Euphemia in a gentlemanly manner, and solemnly and formally introduced himself. "The noble and beautiful third princess, Euphemia Tilii Britannia, Her Royal Highness." I'm Rei Minkai. As you can see, I'm a knight. Now, Knight Rei Minkai greets you. Hearing Rei Minkai's self-introduction, Euphemia secretly raised her head from under the quilt. She glanced at Rei Minkai, who was performing a knight's salute, and found that he really didn't make fun of her confused. Her slightly panicked mind gradually calmed down. Thus, Her Royal Highness straightened her posture and nodded solemnly. No need to be so polite. Raise your head, knight. The moment Rei Minkai raised his head, Euphemia broke her silence and couldn't help but laugh out loud. This feels so weird. Now, should I call you a prostitute? Or should I call you Kai? Euphemia, who found that she didn't die, began to become active. Moreover, the exceptionally smart Euphemia also discovered a fact from Rei Minkai's few words. Now, the world she was in didn't seem to be the original world. And the decorations in the room she was in were all things that Euphemia had never seen before. Even the Britannia Empire probably didn't have such a high level of design to decorate a ward that looked simple, but was actually hiding something. As long as you like it, UFFI. Well then, I'll call you by your name. Kai, you've been lying to me. Euphemia nodded, but the next second, she pointed the spearhead at Rei Minkai. Rei Minkai sighed secretly and was hesitating whether to tell Euphemia the truth, but unexpectedly, Euphemia spoke the truth first. It's father, right, Kai? Her eyes, which were a little shameful just now, became clear at this moment. The third princess didn't shy away from pointing out the person behind the scenes who made Rei Minkai wear a mask and alias himself as K. Rei Minkai was silent for a moment, nodded, but opened his mouth to deny some of the facts. From the results, there is no doubt that His Majesty the Emperor made me wear a mask. But looking at the overall situation, it was because of other reasons. The Academy Summary Competition. It is said that during the competition, there is also a rumor that Her Royal Highness wants to choose a Knight Guardian from the winners of the competition. Euphemia's eyes were extremely clear, and there was a flash of wisdom in them that could see through everything. Rei Minkai was stunned. He didn't expect Euphemia to be able to guess the reason why he became K. If Rei Minkai didn't know the truth behind this matter, he was afraid that he would think that Her Royal Highness in front of him was the person behind the scenes. It seemed that because of Rei Minkai's shocked eyes, Euphemia suddenly became a little timid. Actually, these are all my guesses. Before the start of the Academy conference, I heard rumors from the maids that I was choosing a Knight Guardian. It's just that I couldn't convey my words outside the palace, otherwise, those things wouldn't have happened. Rei Minkai shook his head, stepped forward, gently hugged Euphemia in his arms, and said softly, "Those things have nothing to do with you. I just happened to run into the muzzle of the gun." Kai. Euphemia suddenly became a little dazed. The lion knight that she had been chasing for years finally appeared in front of her and took her into his arms. This made Euphemia unable to resist that aura. However, a voice that spoiled the mood sounded. Ahem. I hope I'm not in your way. It's just that now Euphemia has been approved to be discharged from the hospital. After a series of knocks on the door, Mimi's voice came from outside the door. Euphemia exclaimed and buried herself in the quilt again, leaving Rei Minkai with a bitter smile to face Mimi alone. Half an hour later, Rei Minkai, Euphemia, and Mimi came to the leisure area in the center of Star Glory City. Come. Before you go to the residence arranged for you, why don't we celebrate with Euphemia? Mimi brought up a suggestion that Rei Minkai couldn't refuse. Mimi made a suggestion that Rei Minkai couldn't refuse. Since Euphemia woke up, Rei Minkai had not found a suitable opportunity to confess the current situation to Euphemia. Since he decided to join SPF Authority and use this opportunity to find the puzzle, Euphemia's departure had become an urgent matter. All right. Rei Minkai glanced at Mimi and seemed to think that she had a way to solve this problem. The thoughtful Euphemia looked at Rei Minkai and Mimi and also noticed something. so she went with the flow and agreed. Therefore, the three of them randomly found a quiet coffee shop nearby, sat down, and waited for the robot waiter to arrive. UFFI. What do you think of this world? Surprisingly, Mimi went straight to the point. Very good. I feel very good. There are things I have never seen before everywhere, and there are also strange aliens. Euphemia answered casually. So, the atmosphere here is better than the atmosphere in your hometown? Mimi asked again. Without a doubt, the atmosphere here is better. Although there are a lot of strange aliens, I can see that the people living here are very happy. Happy? That's just on the surface. Mimi glanced at Ray Minkai, leaned back, and kicked the ball back to Ray Minkai. On the surface? Euphemia looked at Ray Minkai with confusion. Actually, I have already joined SPF Authority and am one of their reserve members, Ray Minkai confessed. SPF Authority? Is that the organization you're in, Mimi? Euphemia asked Mimi as soon as she heard that. Yes. Due to some special reasons, Ray Minkai has now become a member of our authority. Right now, in view of Ray Minkai's participation in the number 06 experimental project, our authority also formally extends an invitation to you. Mimi straightened her back, said this with a solemn expression, and then relaxed again. She waved her hand and said, Well, that's it. UFFI, you don't have to make a decision in a hurry. Because you are the third princess of the Britannia Empire, our authority will fully respect your choice. Kai, did they also say this to you? Euphemia looked back at Ray Minkai and asked. Ray Minkai shook his head, indicating that this was not the case. No. Joining the authority was my own choice. I had no choice but to make this choice. Is that so? Euphemia was silent for a moment, then made a decision. Mimi, I need some time. Understood. Mimi snapped her fingers. Then, after the business is done, it's time for leisure. Under Mimi's call, Ray Minkai and Selena finally put down their business and wholeheartedly followed Mimi around Xingyao City until the sun set in the west. It's almost time. Let's go. Now, I'll take you to the residence arranged for you. The residence that Mimi mentioned was not in the City of Stars. Instead, she brought Lei Minkai and Euphemia to the central area of the City of Stars in front of a round gate that was about 100 meters tall and about 100 meters wide. The center of the gate was flashing with energy arcs. This is the world gate that connects the many worlds under the SPF Authority's management. It's used to provide people and vehicles to travel between the many worlds. In addition, there's an even larger version, but you can only see it in space. Mimi looked at Ray Minkai and Euphemia, who were shocked by the huge, flashing light and the large number of people on the platform below, who were orderly going in and out of the world gate under the command of many staff members. Mimi smiled slightly. Ray Minkai had seen a lot of related settings in his original world, and even watched the classic American sci-fi series, Stargate. But in reality, when he saw the world gate that was even larger and more spectacular than the Stargate in the real world, he almost stopped thinking. Come. Follow me. After Mimi woke up Ray Minkai and Euphemia, she led them to a transport elevator specially set up for SPF Authority members. Using this transport elevator, they didn't need to follow the guide route and go through the world gate. Instead, they were able to complete the process quickly and easily. A few minutes quickly passed. With the transport elevator operating at full power, Ray Minkai and the other two only needed an instant to go through the world gate and arrive at a giant tower standing on a vast plain. A straight and smooth cement road started from the horizon and crossed the entire plain, connecting this giant tower to the outside world. This is Earth. As soon as Ray Minkai walked out of the transport elevator, he saw a very familiar planet on the map on the side. Yes and no. Although this is Earth, it's not the same Earth as your original world. Himimi shook her head, looked around, and explained. Is this a parallel world? Euphemia looked at the map in front of her. After thinking for a while, she pointed at North America, which originally belonged to the Britannia Empire, but was now marked as the United States of America. Yes, this world is a member of the parallel world among the countless dimensions of the universe. Himimi nodded. She suddenly waved her hand to the left and continued. The name of this world is Gao de Creator. It's mainly a logistics world used to train the combat skills of our SPF Administrator trainee members. Gao de Creator? As soon as he heard this name, Ray Minkai frowned. According to his memory, this work named Gundam Creator didn't seem to be the kind of world used for fighting and killing, right? The only thing that had anything to do with fighting was the contest between the glue guys. In other words, the glue guys created Gouda models and fought with them. Could it be that they used models to fight? Ray Minkai guessed. When Himimi heard this, she looked at Ray Minkai in surprise. You know about this world? I know a little bit. Ray Minkai hesitated. But Himimi didn't mind. After all, the SPF authority was so big, there were all kinds of strange people. In Himimi's eyes, the title of the strangest person could only be given to the blonde masked man who had been the director of the SPF authority for 16 years. At this moment, a tall and slender woman walked over. She wore a windbreaker, a long cotton shirt, and jeans. Her beautiful orange-red hair was tied into a small braid behind her back. She looked at Himimi and called out, Mimi, I'm here to pick you up. You are? Euphemia asked in confusion. Ray Minkai, who was standing on the side, looked at the woman's face thoughtfully. This is my sister, Marita Korwa. She's the owner of the place that was arranged for you. Himimi smiled sweetly and introduced the woman to Ray Minkai and Euphemia. Chapter 78. Gouda Creator. This was originally a peaceful world where steel polo was popular and model battles were popular. However, after an Abyss patrol team belonging to the SPF administration inadvertently discovered this small world, which did not have much strategic value to begin with, attracted the attention of one of the big three, the Pioneer. Only a small number of people knew that this pioneer came to this world alone and stayed there for a whole Earth standard year. When he returned, he announced that this world would be under the management of the SPF administration. He used this world as a base world for the SPF administration to integrate training, logistics, rest, and other functions into one. At first, everyone thought that the Pioneer would do this only because the Earth in this world was very similar to the world where the Pioneer came from. However, until a certain quasi-B-grade pilot was born in the world of the Pioneer named Gouda, everyone, including the Queen of the Castle and the super-dimensional fortress main control AI Viros, were shocked by the Pioneer's foresight. Therefore, they began a new round of examination of this world that they did not pay attention to. In the end, they were once again amazed by the Pioneer's foresight. Model Battle. This was a popular entertainment competition that arose in this world. At first glance, it was just a model battle competition that some hobbyists created with some new technology. However, upon further investigation, many people discovered the profoundness of this matter. Each round of the competition unfolded around 2 or more steel polo models. The winner was the king and the loser was the bandit. Whether it was the winner or the loser, the steel polo models they used would be damaged in the battle. This was very similar to a real battle. If the pilot was shrunk and placed on the steel polo model, or if the steel polo was scaled up, this was simply a replica of the battle between Microsoft and Microsoft. However, instead of a real, cold, and cruel steel battle, the battle was changed to a plastic model driven by Palevsky particles. After the results of many investigations, the final result was released. Everyone agreed with the pioneer's approach and announced that they should increase the development of this world's technology based on Palevsky particles to train the pilots belonging to the SPF Authority, the castle, and even the seed pilots selected by Viros. Therefore, the world that Ray Minkai and Euphemia saw was created. I'll stop here. The next mission will be left to you, Sister Merida. Under the giant tower, the black-haired girl stood on the side of the road and waved at Merida, Ray Minkai, and Euphemia, who were sitting in the car. Mimi, you're not coming? Euphemia was very surprised. She originally thought that Mimi would go to their residence. Mimi shook her head and sighed regretfully. It can't be helped. I'm done with my mission here. But next, I have other missions to complete. Then, Mimi seemed to have suddenly thought of something and hurriedly looked at Merida and said, Sister Merida, Ray Minkai's equipment should be with you, right? Remember to give it to him later. I think the training target mission has already been given. Merida nodded and said with a smile, I know. Go ahead. Be careful. When Mimi heard this, she clenched her small fist and waved it. No need to be careful. The next mission doesn't require me to go to some strange world. I'm just going back to prepare for the upcoming concert. Concert? Ray Minkai looked at the black-haired girl in surprise. He couldn't connect the two unrelated professions of an inspector and a singer together. What? Do you think that being an inspector means you can't be a singer? You know, being a singer is my family's tradition. Mimi put her hands on her waist and said proudly. Then she waved her hand again and said goodbye to Ray Minkai and the other two. She turned around and returned to the giant tower, leaving this world through the world gate here. You're Ray Minkai, right? Merida's light purple pupils retracted from the giant tower and fell on Ray Minkai, who was sitting in the back seat for a while, then moved to Euphemia, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. You're Euphemia Elie Britannia? Yes. Ray Minkai and Euphemia nodded in unison. Hello. I'm Marita Korwa. I'm your guide. First, Ray Minkai, you open the left door's hidden compartment, there's your terminal there. Euphemia, there's also a terminal in the hidden compartment next to you. Under Merida's instructions, Ray Minkai and Euphemia both received their terminals. However, Euphemia was confused by the terminal in her hand that was clearly beyond the technological level of the Britannia Empire. I haven't joined the authority yet. You're giving this to me just like that? Merida smiled and explained, this is only a temporary loan. SPF Authority Reserve members will have a lot of inconveniences without this terminal. Open it and take a look. Ray Minkai and Euphemia looked at each other and opened the terminal. With a flash of light, Ray Minkai's eyes suddenly lit up. His facial outline was scanned on the holographic screen projected by the terminal, and a line of Chinese was marked below. SPF Authority Reserve member, Ray Minkai, login confirmed. On the other hand, Euphemia's terminal was projecting a series of English words. You've even achieved the difference in language? Ray Minkai was slightly surprised. This is a necessary function. The membership of the authority is a bit complicated. Everyone comes from different races and civilizations. In order not to affect daily use and communication, we have installed a synchronous translation and real-time detection function on the terminal. Merida took out a terminal identical to the one in Ray Minkai's hands from under the driver's seat and said, Now you should have the reserve funds in your terminal account. In addition, Ray Minkai, your terminal also has a training objective mission. As long as you complete this mission, you'll be an official member of the authority. Mission? Ray Minkai immediately followed Merida's instructions and opened his mailbox. Sure enough, a message marked as a new email was flashing inside. After opening it, Ray Minkai's brows suddenly furrowed. From the time Merida introduced the origin of this world to him, He had been wondering who the person who was born in this world and attracted the attention of many big shots was. He didn't expect that this person would send him an email. That's right. Although Merida didn't explain who this person was, Ray Minkai immediately guessed from the signature of the email. Miss Merida. Is the name of the pilot who was born in this world called EZ? Ray Minkai's question surprised Merida a little, but she still nodded and gave the answer. Just call me Merida. You guessed right. When many people doubted the decision of the pioneers, the pilot who came out of nowhere was called EZ. Now he should be in the Third Fleet as the captain of MS. Ray Minkai heard this and turned the projection screen on the terminal to Merida. When Merida saw it, the surprise on her face could no longer be hidden. Your training target mission was sent directly to you by EZ? It seems that you have received a lot of attention. Probably. Ray Minkai was obviously a little unconfident. He didn't know if Merida knew the meaning of the name EZ, but he knew, and he knew what this sudden training target mission meant. I am EZ, the preparatory team member who received this letter. Listen up, you only have one mission. That is to fight and defeat a kid named Makoto Ito in the Steel Pulla Model World competition. A few simple sentences, and the signature marked as EZ, made Ray Minkai smile bitterly in his heart. This unreliable father found an opponent for his son, and he even found him. Minkai, look at your account. At this moment, Euphemia let out a cry of surprise. Ray Minkai didn't know why, but he still did as he was told. In the end, he was stunned by the series of zeros on the screen. This? Ray Minkai was almost dazzled by the number of zeros that seemed to be 9-digit. The SPF authority couldn't be this rich, right? How could a mere preparatory team member give out such an astronomical sum of money? You didn't see wrong. This is one of the benefits of the SPF authority. Everyone will receive a starting fund. After the training mission, you can use the money to buy some parts from the equipment area in Xingyao City to modify your body. You can also purchase property in this world. You are free to use the money however you want. Merida seemed to be used to this as she explained calmly. Euphemia's lips moved as if she wanted to refuse, but Ray Minkai stopped her. Take it first. UFFI. Next, you can use mine first. Euphemia lowered her head and looked at Ray Minkai's right hand, which was on the back of her hand, and nodded silently. When Merida saw that the two had no objections, she started the car and drove back to the city in the distance along the only road that led to the outside world. Along the way, they didn't talk much. Merida was focused on driving, Euphemia was observing the surrounding scenery, and Ray Minkai was planning his next move. Without a doubt, after he received the training target mission, information about the father and son pair, EZ and Makoto Ito, immediately appeared in his mind. Images of Makoto Ito's performance in the Steel Pulla world flashed across his mind. Ray Minkai's memory of the creator also became clearer. But it also became more serious. Do you want to do something? Ray Minkai's gaze slowly moved up. Through the rearview mirror in front of him, he looked at Merida, who was focused on driving the car, and immediately rejected the idea. Forget it. I'm also a member of the Glue Guys. Doing something in the Steel Pulla World competition is simply an insult to the Steel Pulla. In Ray Minkai's calculations, the speeding car, driven by Merida, soon returned to the metropolis, left the highway, and turned into an elegant, chic, and quiet community. We're here. Ray Minkai, Euphemia, get out of the car. After Merida drove the car into the underground garage of a luxurious villa with an area of at least 800 square meters, she said while unfastening her seat belt. When Ray Minkai and Euphemia followed Merida out of the underground garage, a fat man wearing an apron, with gray sideburns and beard, who looked to be at least 60 years old, was guarding the door, waiting for Merida, Ray Minkai, and Euphemia. Dad. I'm back. This is Ray Minkai, Euphemia, Li Britannia. Then, Merida turned around and introduced the fat man guarding the door to Ray Minkai and Euphemia. This is my father, Sparoya Kisinman. He is also one of the guides in charge of receiving the administrator's potential teammate. Sparoya Kisinman? Ray Minkai pondered for a moment and asked with some uncertainty, "Are you Golangshua's captain, Sparoya Kisinman?" The man froze for a moment and then laughed. I didn't expect that after so many years, there would still be someone who recognized me as Golangshua's captain. Merida, it seems that our teammate in charge this time is a very interesting person. Maybe Dad. Merida nodded slightly, and then called Ray Minkai and Euphemia into the house. Come in. It's getting late. Let's eat first. At the dinner table, Ray Minkai never thought that in the original work, Captain Sinman, who didn't show any cooking skills, could make 10 dishes and 1 soup by herself. Not to mention Ray Minkai, even the carefree Euphemia, the third princess of the empire, couldn't stop. While trying to maintain the etiquette of a princess, she couldn't help but put food into her bowl. In the end, Ray Minkai considerately put her favorite dishes into her bowl, so she could maintain the etiquette of the third princess of the empire. Captain, I didn't expect your cooking skills to be so good. Ray Minkai handed a tissue to Euphemia and looked at Merida, who also ate a lot of food, and was wiping her mouth in an orderly manner, and sincerely praised. On the other hand, Hinman smiled and gently looked at Merida. He slowly said, "It's just that I've been cooking for a long time. It's not worthy of your praise." Fortunately, Merida and the others didn't dislike my cooking because of this. How could that be? We never waste Dad's cooking. Merida blushed and subconsciously retorted. Is that so? I know. Sinman looked up at the clock and said, Merida, you've worked hard today. Why don't you take this young lady to take a bath? Let me and Ray Minkai clean up here. Okay, Dad. Merida nodded. And Euphemia also left with Merida under Ray Minkai's signal. After the 2 girls disappeared behind the door, Sinman stood up and said apologetically, "Sorry. I shouldn't have let the guests clean up." "No, it's just a small matter. It's nothing." Ray Minkai shook his head and turned to look at the group photo hanging on the wall of the living room. "Just right. I also have some things to ask you." Sinman noticed Ray Minkai's gaze, but he didn't refuse. "Then, let's wash the dishes together and talk. I believe that we'll have a good chat." On the wall. In that large group photo, Sinman, who was wearing a football uniform and was equally fat, but looked much younger, was surrounded by a group of girls wearing the same football uniform, with the same hair color and exactly the same face. They, at that moment, were all smiling so brightly and happily. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.